Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lightbringers podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the secrets of the obscure final story part of Awesome Whales and everything. I'm not hyping it up more than it needs to be. I'm going to just show our faces so that it's everything is fine again. We have Fornex, we have Rookery, we have Crew. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hope we are good.
I've been joined by my cat, who's here to also give the Char perspective. Senka's going to be telling us about how the Char felt coming through this, and what they think about the culmination of Secrets of the Obscure. So
amazing. Yeah. I could only see their eyes. I was like, your cat is so dark and pretty.
Yes, little black cat.
I like black cats. How are we all doing? Good, lovely, beautiful.
We're doing lovely. We're energized with the Guild Wars 2 energy to bring you our recap of the Midnight King. And in the same vein, the entirety of Secrets of the Obscure.
Yeah,
I know.
we're done.
We're done. Yeah. Like, we're looking ahead to the start of the next expansion. Like, we have finished this first foray into the 1-year expansion cycle. And I think there were a lot of really, really good things. There were definitely things to learn from as well for them, which I'm sure we'll talk about today as we've now kind of seen how it all comes together. But it's been really interesting seeing how this first year of content has kind of unfolded.
Exactly. Yes, lots of things to learn, lots of things to talk about. Boots is not here, as people know. They have had their kid and stuff, so we are waiting with bated breath to find out if Boots has bought small boots yet or not. That would be good. They probably don't need them yet.
Sending love and energy towards Boots
probably have
and
socks.
His family.
Yeah.
Just have mini socks. Do kids have boots when they're born though? You don't put booties on them, are they? That's the question I'm wondering.
They're generally not born with them on, definitely.
Yeah,
no.
Fully dressed. No.
Yeah, Jebro, clothes are made by people, but not in the same way that babies are made by people. So if we need to have this talk at some point, just like let us know.
I need to have that again.
Too much character creation has happened in your life that you like. We will modify this bit before it pops out. Yeah. No.
Oh. No. Nothing but cowboy boots. Yeah, see, there you go. Pax knows. This is what it's about.
Yeehaw.
That's what it's about.
That's only if you're born in the South, though.
And if you are here live, and if you are here and watching and this is recorded, big ass spoiler warning. You have had your warning. It will be in the title. We are talking story. We are talking the latest patch. It came out this week, so it's fresh off the presses. So we're going to be talking about it. So if you're holding out for the weekend, or you're holding out for another time, don't watch this if you don't want to be spoiled. If you don't care, continue to watch and be awesome with our faces. I'm not sure. Our faces are so awesome. There will be some gameplay as well. I played it on Wednesday because I was like, yeah, I'm going to stream it so I can use the footage. So that will be on in the background. There will be some missing footage, as apparently I've just found out a thing. We'll get to that.
I have footage if you want to use that.
Yeah, I've got.
I kind of do, but I also kind of don't want to see it until I play it. So I'm not sure.
Well,
oh, I see.
Is it
I thought
important?
Jebro was literally about. Yeah, I know, we're garbage crew. We don't.
Oh no, not because of that.
no, it's okay.
I like using other people's footage as well. I'm fully just doubling up on myself today. But let's do a quick little mini intro. Fornex, tell us what you do, where you do it.
Hey, I'm Fornex. I'm the Crichton Herald. I make content over on YouTube. Haven't made any for a while because I've been living through a natural disaster at home. But yeah, I make content about Guild Wars 2 and other things over on my channel. Please do check it out. The Crichton Herald.
Awesome. Solid
That
intro.
Is all. Thank you.
Kroof, ping me your video of the Miller thing in it. With a timestamp if you can. I'll
You got it, bestie.
pop it up. Rook, I won't make you do your intro while you're doing that, because that'd be funny.
You could. I'm great at multitasking.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rook, and apparently my footage is the only footage that's not.
Oh my god, ping me
Lightbringers
yours
today.
as well.
No,
I just wanted to use it for that matter.
You have more than enough. I'm just teasing. And Rook, aka Rookery. You can find me over on my Twitch channel, ROOKURI. You can find me as well on YouTube and on Twitter at Rickery_. If I'm not there, I am probably talking about the MMOs that we love, including Guild Wars 2 on either this or Aetherite Radio, the 14 podcast that I do. And if I'm not on either of those, I am probably shoutcasting, hosting, or commentating various events in the community. This Saturday, I'll be over on Team Liquid's channel. Tomorrow, I'll be over on Team Liquid's channel doing the Mythic Plus Charity Pro-Am that they're doing again as we raise money for a good cause and the teams compete for the prize pool to help their charities. So check that out if you have some time and if this episode, when you listen to it, isn't too far in the future. So both of those. But I'm excited to talk about Secrets of the Obscure today, because I think we got a lot of thoughts and a lot we've taken away from the experience.
Well, yes.
I like the way you put that. Awesome. Excited for all the stuff. I'm going to try and pop by if I can and take a watch and normally try and check people's stuff out.
There you go. Good save.
Yep.
Yeah.
We all love it.
All bits will be checked at the start of the podcast.
Yeah. I love
so that everyone knows
to check our bits. It's it's weird a little bit, but
only a little bit. Rickery says confirmed.
Yeah.
Only a little bit weird. If I check out everyone's bits and bobs, that's so it's not that bad, surely.
No, it's not that bad. That's good. Yeah.
Excellent.
It's an acquired taste, but you grin and bear. You grin and bear.
Wow. You've been missed. I think I said some of your phrases last week, actually, Phonics. I'm like, what was it? What's your normal one? The whole kit and caboodle. I think I tried to say that a couple of times without like making a point of it. Because I don't know. Yeah, I haven't heard that for a while. Croof. That's what you do when you do it.
Trying to type to Rook right now. I guess I'll come back to that. But hi everyone, I'm Kroof. I do some Guild Wars 2 content over on my YouTube. Just little small videos every now and again talking about, I don't know, whatever the game's up to. And I've also been streaming here on Twitch recently, of course, with the Twitch drops, but getting back into it during the weekends. Do some Guild Wars 2 primarily, but then on Sundays we will switch it up. We're currently starting our endeavor in The Sims 4, and there's quite a bit of drama and storylines already happening there. I've already gotten cheated on. I did the woohoo.
You got cheated on already? Oh my God,
it's kind of complicated. In my head, I was cheated on. But yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I've played quite a bit of the Midnight King. I've done basically everything that I've wanted to do. So I'm excited to sit down and chat with other people to see their perspectives on the matters.
Cool beans. Yes, we will be talking story primarily today, but also a little bit of something else, as I keep mentioning, which I'm actually feeling very angry about right now. Not angry, but disappointed about. Also, if you're watching live, twitch.tv/JebroUni, you don't need to know the address because you're here already. But if you want to check us out live, it's that address, 1 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. GMT, if it's during the summer. If it's during the winter, it's an hour later or earlier. Anyway, we don't need to talk about that now. YouTube.com/JebroUni for the podcast episodes as well. It's pretty much mostly what is on my channel right now. Always subscribing, liking, commenting really does help. We have a bunch of people watching. We also have a bunch of people listening on Spotify, iTunes, all the things. Also really appreciate if you're watching us on Spotify, or if you haven't reviewed us on Spotify and want to chuck us a massive amount of 5 stars, because the podcast is obviously amazing. That would be massively appreciated so it can get out to a ton more people as well. Follow the podcast as well, really does help. We've got, actually we're about to hit 80,000 views on listens to the podcast on listening to apps and stuff outside of YouTube. So really awesome. Thank you for your support. Appreciate your faces, especially Phonex's. And it jiggles as well. Wow.
It does.
Wow.
All the good things, people, darling. All the good things.
Articulation.
Yeah. So, the final part of Secrets of the Obscure is out. We've done the story. What was this? What was it called? The Midnight King. It's just called the Midnight King, right? It's just the Midnight King.
Yes.
It's about the big boy.
Yeah.
Big boy himself. And I'm gonna put the video on in the background because it helps give me a reference, because then I can remember exactly what's going on, because I forget things very quickly. But we did get a mail. We were told to go and speak to the people and do the things. How was it getting back into the game after being away for like 3 months as well? Like, what was it like kind of logging back in, having this beginning to the story? Were you excited? Were you like, oh, I really can't wait to experience this? Or was it like, oh, I'm not sure based on my last experience I had? Like, how are you feeling about like just re-engaging with the story of Guild Wars 2 and Secrets of the Discord, and feelings about this being the last kind of part of the expansion as well? There's lots of things to think about even before just playing it, right? Or not necessarily, but you know. There was a lot of questions in there.
No, Cornex, you go for it. I'll let you start picking this apart.
Oh gosh, thank you. So I have to admit that I was a bit concerned going in. Overall, I think that the expansion itself has been great. The first like salvo that we got, as I said many times, is worth the price of admission alone. But I feel like, in general, that they oversold Naos as bridging content to the next expansion, or as just like a prologue. I think it would be fine, but they've made it into this big thing, and I don't think that we've got enough stuff for it to be a big thing. And I was hoping that they were going to do a really big finish to kind of put a capstone on this and kind of reassure the community that yes, this is different. Yes, it's a new era, but things are still going to be this very high quality. And I think that in some areas they have delivered, and in others they haven't. But I mean, personally, when I log in and it's just a letter or correspondence waiting for me, I'm kind of a little bit disappointed, because I would rather have something more real, go to a location, talk to people, have some other prompt. We seem to be just responding to correspondence all the time, and the magic voices in our head. So I don't know. I think I want something a little bit more immersive, a little bit more in the world. Like they initially wanted the story to be happening and unfolding around us as we're exploring the world. And I hope that they will get back to that feeling of immersion, that feeling of walking in the world and things happening naturally, rather than us constantly errand boying it around. So,
yeah, I would agree with pretty much everything Fortex has said. I think that from like the point of your question, Jeb, you know, how are we feeling coming back to it? I thought it is a little bit, unfortunately, telling that when you framed it, you said, how did you feel coming back to the game after 3 months? And I had a moment where I was like, well, some folks have still been playing. And then I went, oh, but I do actually know that a lot of people have been taking breaks. And I had been popping in a bit more here or there, kind of knowing that the finale was going to be coming out. And I've been wanting to work a bit on the Legendary Armor Collection, which I know has been motivating folks to come in. And I have seen some people, you know, jumping in to work on it. And our raid groups have still been going and things like that. But it does really feel like with the second half of Secrets of the Obscure, there was a lot of momentum that kind of continued to sort of decrease over time. And I think a lot of folks were kind of just taking a bit of a break. So when I came into it, I was really hoping, my outlook was, oh man, I really, really hope that like this is a big hunk like we got with the first part. I hope there's like a bunch to really dig into. I hope that some of the stuff that maybe thus far with these smaller patches that we haven't really been able to dive into with the characters and Nyos and the exploration of it and the history of the Cryptus, or you know, the alliances that are being forged there, as well as the way that like the Astral Ward might come into this. I really hope it comes together, and that maybe with this release, this will be like another really big satisfying hunk to round it all off and to really bring this to a strong close. And like Fornex said, I think there were parts of it that were really great, like great portions, some really good moments, you know, at least one really big standout story instance. And the meta and stuff as well, the culmination on that, great. But I will say, I felt like my momentum almost immediately plummeted. I got that letter and I went to go do the first quest, and it was just another fill the exact same event bar in Nyos that we filled 2 times in the last episode. And almost all of my momentum immediately plummeted because it was just like rehashing a place we'd already had to hash multiple times. And we'll talk more about it in detail, some of the story, but
sure.
It was definitely something that took my oh man, yeah, I'm excited about the big final moment. And then within a matter of 5 minutes, I immediately was like, oh no. And I think that really kind of, it kind of set a weird feeling for the rest of the playthrough. And as I've since gone through and I've looked over some stuff, because I think maybe in some of the things, this was our first experience through it. And
do
you
want to hold off because we're talking about pre at the moment?
Yeah, so this is not the story.
Oh, okay,
all right. This is me talking about the scale and scope of the finale.
Oh,
and this
okay.
is something that I wanted to mention.
Cool.
So while I was live going through it, I actually with the community went back to look at some of the blog posts. And because this is the first time that we've actually come through a year-long story arc, it suddenly, for me, cast a lot of other things that I had found that my brain had interpreted one way in a very different light. They were very upfront, and they very much did say how the releases and things, the roadmaps and things, have the exact amount of content that we got outlined. But some of the things, like this one phrase that I remembered us talking about on the Lightbringers, which was that there will be a second full arc of a story that will be released that will, have its own same kind of culmination or arc. But they never did specify, to be fair, because I had misinterpreted this. They never did specify that this finale episode would be equivalent to the first release that we got. And so for me, that's contextualized a lot of things differently. And I think I assumed going into it that what we had on our plate was something like Elder Scrolls Online, and that they were mimicking that model where you get the one really big release with an arc, you get some little things in between, and then you get another really big release with the new maps and an arc. And now, retrospectively looking back after coming through it, I realized that that was partially me misinterpreting what they had said and comparing it to other models.
I think we did. We all did that, though.
We all did, right? I wanted to mention that, right at the start, even though this kind of has lengthened my comment, but I wanted to mention that right at the start because I think my expectations going into the episode were that, and by those measures, I was like, what happened? Like the scale of it and things like that were very startling to me as a result. But that I see now in retrospect that I think what they meant was that it would be a second arc told over 3 patches. But whether or not I think that was successfully pulled off, I still think is a matter of discussion. And whether or not that kind of storytelling still has momentum is something that I think we'll probably be talking a lot about today.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was good to keep in mind in terms of expectation versus overall experience once it's all said and done. And I guess for me, coming back to Guild Wars 2, I would still play fairly regularly, not as regularly as I have in the past, but going into this update, I wasn't extremely hyped. Nor was I really. I think I was very much in the middle, where I was just excited to see this story come to a conclusion, to get at least that cap on it, because I feel like my overall experience with this expansion and also these 3 updates were kind of informed enough by the second update. It kind of left me with all of the impressions that I needed. And now it was just more so just closing that book. But we'll get into the details. But I did find myself not to be overly surprised, but I wasn't overly disappointed or anything. I thought there were, as we've all said, there were some good momentous moments, some good set pieces. And then as Rick had pointed out, when we first get into the story, which I imagine we'll start talking about here in a moment, it was a little so it was fun to come back to at least experience a finale of some kind, to know that this is the end.
Yeah. I guess just to add my bit on the end, because I think sometimes I forget to do that. That I think in the end, that was important. Little kiss on your face.
Well, yeah, if your cat comes to snuggle you, you have to kiss them.
Baby. You're so cute.
To our audio listeners, Jebro is holding up his cat and saying, "Look at the baby."
Look at the baby. She's so cute. Apart from that bit, I think Smudge, I'm sorry, I'm going to call you out, said that I'm ready for the new one. I just wanted it to end. And I was like, I mean, honestly, I was like, I'm kind of done with Nios as just like the map and stuff. Like, I think I definitely want the darker kind of like atmosphere and the cool kind of, you know, just the enemies and everything else. But at the same time, I was like, I mean, I haven't been massively enthralled or connected to this story at all. I feel like there are so many characters that I'm wondering who I'm going to disconnect from next because there's just so many. And then I was just like, well, there's actually so much. Like, the reason why I'm excited for this to see this is because I'm excited to compare it to the future episodes, because I think this is all a learning experience. This is all growth. And I think that when we criticize things, we forget that people will fail. They will let us down because we're never going to have our expectations met, especially in 2024, because it's very difficult. We know that now, and everyone's not afraid to say it because you can do it very anonymously. So I think it's going to be exciting to see how much they grow from this. But also, yeah, sure, I was disappointed with some stuff. Like, there's something very specific, which I only just found out literally like minutes before we were literally about to go live, like to do this, which I'm really disappointed and sad about. But, you know, we'll get there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say my overall experience. Like, I've said a little bit, you know, I was disappointed a bit, but as we go through it, I can remember some of the things that I was thinking about. I really like the point that Fornax made about when they start these instances, and it's like you feel like a courier sometimes with mail, and it's just like, you know, maybe they come up, they just like bring in the panel and they say, click now, click this button to begin the next chapter, and then suddenly you're just either transported somewhere, or someone comes to you, or you go to somewhere, or there's a mini cinematic, just like anything, just even like blah blah blah, like even if it was just this, like, you know, where the next place is, the allies are gathering at blah 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 to do the things, and music and blah and rah, and like, do you know what I mean, like that more episodic thing. Now I get that when you play through it, when like, and you haven't had the releases, it's going to be episodic and it's just going to be rolling, right? Like, someone made that really, really good constructive, I don't know, someone made that point a while ago. And it was just that we are playing this as it comes out as an update, and when we come back, we are actually, it's just the next episode. It's not, you know, like, it's a standalone thing. It's just the next episode. Why should that have some special intro that's different? But then you could argue that it's an episode. Like, what about an episode to a TV show? Like, an episode to a TV show says, last time on blah, or the first shot is normally this meaningful, like really impactful shot. Most of the time, it's not just like some guy walking his dog. Like, you know, unless the dog is a main feature of the story. So I think there is some issues around the impact of the game back into it, because there isn't, the excitement isn't there, right? And then we go to somewhere nice, I can't remember specifically where, but it's their home, it's their main core base bit. And you start talking to your allies about how you're going to kind of storm the base, and then they come and try and infiltrate and kill you to stop you from going there in the first place. And it's okay. I like the fighting. I like the achievements in this section, actually. I thought they were fun to do. They weren't difficult, but like, you know, you had to heal and keep Payfor alive, for example. You had to She can't remember the other ones. But they were fun.
I do want to point out about the green bar, because that is the first thing that we did do. And I
Was that
kind
the
of
first
found
thing
it...
that wasn't the first thing.
You get a very short scene where they basically tell you to go and do the green bar.
Oh, was the green bar before the bit I just did? Oh, I jumped ahead. My bad.
It's
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, because
Yes,
the instances take place in the same exact location, so it is very easy to mix
My
up.
bad.
But the very
Yes.
first one is you get the mental, but even to the point of when we're playing it live, there are gaps of time and they have to reintroduce it.
Sure.
But even if you are going back and replaying it all in one seamless, fluid playthrough, even that is a little bit jarring, because you'll go from one instance to then someone talking in your head being like, we've prepared all preparations. I almost feel like there should be an initial side quest to do to kind of string those better along. Because there is no lead up to, it's been 2 weeks and you've helped with the defenses, or you've talked to this general to set up a defense, and then they're like, okay, go back to Patha, we're ready to form. So even that is a little jarring. It is formulaic, and I think it is a great start to the episode when you are coming back after 3 months.
Yeah.
But that was my only comment about that. But
I love to dovetail off of that, because on one hand, I see the point that you've made, Groove, with the idea that it's a good way to come back after 3 months away. Like, if somebody hadn't played the last release in a while, and the fact that they added adventures to the maps in Nios, which I think the fact that they allowed you with this event bar to do either the adventures or to do the, event chains that were going on, and that you get this kind of leading letter that does sort of bring you to an adventure, and, kind of tip you off to that, I thought was, sure, I could see that they wanted folks to see that there was new content that you could do on the map. But I agree as well that personally, I just hope they never do this again. And I say this with all the love in my heart, but especially for a finale, I think this is one of the biggest takeaways for me, that for a capstone and for a finale, I'm not sure if this 3-part small release really worked. Maybe it works from a workload standpoint, in that because the team is starting to shift towards working on the major release of the next expansion, it allows them to be able to take more from the teams that are working on it to prep the next year's expansion. But I think from a player experience standpoint, it just really makes things feel so slow and so sludgy in a sense, because the story of Nios was just sort of chopped up in this way that cohesive story and the momentum of it just kind of seemed impossible. And to come into a finale, when I compare to the opening of Secrets of the Obscure, where you go into the field, you're, investigating the stuff that's going on, the weird changes with the villagers, you go to this rift, you're having to do a little subterfuge thing to try and figure out what's going on here. There's this group of people that are, very weird and here for who knows what reason, and you get sucked into a portal and you get thrown into the demon realm and you're fleeing from the castle. That is momentum, and that is a narrative hook that brings you into something in a dynamic and interesting and engaging way. But because we had 3 portions of the map, and the map itself, I love the style of it. I even love the atmosphere. And I've heard a lot of folks talk about the fact that they felt like after a while, just kind of the constant gray fog and other things were just a little bit wearing for the whole second half of the year to just be one zone that was like that. But I think there was potential for Nios to have areas that reflect this dream element, or the corruption element, or the what once was but now has been corroded. There was so much potential for the storytelling in the maps, but because we'd had the map sort of divvied up in these 3 sections, we'd only had this one map that really has a very similar feel, at least until you get to the final portion with the castle. That doesn't have a lot of distinctive things to discover. It doesn't have the secret mini dungeons of Echo Vault. It doesn't have the unique spirit maze of the Seitang province. It doesn't have all of the little nooks and crannies and things to discover of the Heart of Thorns maps.
Or even the original maps, to be fair.
Yeah,
they're really magic. Like if you've not
jumping puzzles.
Well, yeah, but there's so many little details and areas where you find a little thing and you're like, it's not even in map completion. Sometimes you're just like, whoa, what is this place? And that's the original maps as well. Like that feels missing. And
it feels empty.
Yeah.
It feels empty.
And maybe
and so does the story.
Maybe it's supposed to.
The story feels empty as well.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. We're into it. No. That's not. No, that's good. That's good. That's a good point.
This is what I mean, though. For the start of a finale episode, we were already in a kind of empty space, missing a lot of crucial character foundational building of the demons of Nyos, information and context about the realm. We get these amazing tidbits of lore about them and the way they process emotions and what it was like when they were able to dream freely and how their world has been so corrupted over these eons. And we just don't get to actually engage with or explore any of that. It's hard to even know partially who most of these demons are. And then immediately we're thrown into this thing like, yeah, we've been fighting the good fight. And, the commander is there and he's like, yeah, our army's doing good. And I'm like, I still have not in one cutscene even seen this supposed army that we have.
I know.
Yeah, true.
Even if we had started with like a pan of the forces and something with that, right? Like we have to have a narrative hook, especially I think into a finale portion where we feel the establishment and sort of build of characters, places, locations. And that felt so missing. And to just kind of stick us back out on the map right at the get-go when I was looking for that hook, I was looking for that thing, really took the wind out of my sails because I was like, I already looped the map 2 times in your last small episode. It was the vast majority of what I did. And I can't necessarily say that the journey I had doing that uncovered a wealth of story material or content for me that I then was able to supplement my understanding of this second narrative arc with. So it really fell flat for me at the opening.
I also feel like that green bar segment could have been a great opportunity to establish that by actually using the events that we have in game. I feel like with the green bar, it was so amorphous and there was no direction. When it comes to a finale, I feel like there needs to be a lot of intention. And with those events where you're going around the map fighting those cryptids, I really appreciate that those cryptids are actually talking back and are kind of egging people on about Eparch. And it does feel like the enemy is more of a character. But when it came to being a player character in that setting, there were no like allied cryptids around, or there were no NPCs that I was recognizing around like, oh, these are the forces that are fighting back the enemy cryptids, and we're finally pushing through to that. So I feel like if it wasn't a green bar where you could just go to any location and it was instead like clear out this sector, clear out the river, clear out this bottom part with story characters
scripted and purposeful.
Scripted to where it was on a cycle of like every minute these story group events would be popping, so people wouldn't be able to miss it. It'd be very easy to get back into. But I felt where, because it was so up to the player's will, it just didn't feel like there was any intention behind it, so it was kind of forgettable. I think it was an okay way, but I feel like they just missed the mark on that execution for the first objective quest.
Honestly, can I just take this back to the inciting incident, right? So we have throughout the bulk of the expansion, the cryptids have been antagonistic. We have watched them systematically torture and murder people that we actually cared about in the story, right? And they did that because you can say that it's the influence of Eparch, but I'm getting the feeling that is not actually necessarily the case, that these are creatures who are predatory in nature. And so the whole inciting incident of us actually caring whether this monstrous race that invades other worlds to consume other people and tortured people that we care about, I'm sort of, you'd have to give us a bloody good reason to go over there. And because they didn't big up Eparch enough, because he didn't have the presence of Saras, that terrifying cinematic moment where we meet him for the first time and he's in our he's in our space and he's making us feel uncomfortable and we feel like he's a threat. And all Eparch has been is a voice in our head, and actually quite sympathetic for some of the writing with his loss of his partner and things. Well, who are we feeling sorry for? Because I don't feel anything for Paitha. Paitha just seems to be this grand manipulator. And I feel like we have just been manipulated, and so it's kind of it's strange. There's been no, if they wanted us to care and have a connection with Paitha, this was their opportunity right in this this prologue to do that. But I know as much about her now as I did when we began. Nothing else has been revealed.
Oh, she shows more vulnerability earlier on, right? She doesn't. That's not continually happening, and it was like one moment, I think, 1 or 2 moments, maybe.
Yeah, I don't understand.
I agree with you. We are missing so much with her, and with so many of the characters, but particularly, there's a real dissonance in how the Cryptists are portrayed. Because I totally agree with you. I think that this episode, really, we probably needed to have a moment where we revisit the Astral Tower. We actually get to talk to some of the people there about what's been happening, about how they are responding to it, especially because some of these characters we find out after the fact had moments where they had a change of heart for some kind of reason, which is what brings together both the halves of this expansion. And some of them chose to try to help the Cryptists and others didn't, or some waited until the last second, like Isgarin, when they felt like things were going pretty good for them, and that then they would get involved, right? But we have this whole missing hunk, as well as Paitha, who, yes, we get a moment with her where there seems to be some kind of emotional thing, but unfortunately, I think it's kind of telling that I couldn't even 100% tell you what that is, other than the fact that although there is a feeling, because the wizards are so mistrustful of her and are constantly she's probably bad, don't trust her, demons are bad, don't trust her. And we see the violence that's happening, in the start of the expansion. But then every single thing that we get from Paitha is just I want to help my people. My people are suffering. Yes. Eparch is eating my people. What a terrible thing that he has done to my people. It's so awful. We don't see any actual examples. Several times she makes statements about well, I'll convince our people or I'll rally them to our cause. And then either she blatantly fails that, like we saw at the end of the previous episode, or there's just no basis where we ever see her being actually truly demonstrably manipulative, charismatic, being able to sway the masses, being able to change people's minds with the truth that she's discovered. We know nothing about her actual personal motivations other than my people are suffering. But what is her direct connection to that as somebody who was a part of the nobility and probably, there's so much that I think we needed to be established, if not in the previous sections leading up to this when we were first introduced to Nyos, then at least in this finale episode where we could get a revisit of where people are and what's currently happening and whether or not the demons have fallen back with the Astral Ward, going back into Nyos, actually seeing the forces, having examples of what we would even back or distrust about Paitha in action, seeing something about the motivations that she has to become king other than Eparch's eating everybody. And we get some interesting things in this portion with the idea of
this next segment, even the assassination.
But there are these huge gaps that not having them at the start of this episode felt like, I don't know, it felt like standing on the edge of a diving board and having somebody just unexpectedly come up behind you and slam you into the water. You're like, what's happening? Like, yeah.
They didn't take advantage of what they had. They could have told the story of Naos on the map, but instead they made it all about the defenses. But there's no main characters on the map. There's no big confrontations on the map. There's NPCs that we encounter that have nothing to do with the story, and yet they've become a meta boss somehow, or in the mini meta boss. And they could have had main characters on the map running around, doing things, having dialogue, even if it's just text dialogue, that we could see them fighting this war rather than just it feels like there's the narrative team and the events team need to come together and have a nice long conversation about how they can have events that move the story forward, especially when they have an economy of time and resources to do so. I feel like a lot of this could have been saved.
I actually didn't mind the bar this time, because
I didn't hate it either. That's the funny thing.
I did the adventures, the new ones, and
Is there just one or is there two?
There's 2 or 3 actually. I think there's 3.
Oh, I only did one.
There's the one with the, oh god, I can't remember. Oh no, maybe there were 2. Yeah, there was. Oh wait. There's more on the other side of the map. There's
3 to 4.
Yeah. There's more on the other side of the map. I zoomed out, but like I also did some of the other ones as well, where there's the forces. And with the mix, when you did the adventures, because it said like if you do the adventures, count for more progress, so you could actually burn that bar a lot quicker. So I did about 4 events, and I think it was like 5 or 6 if you did the other stuff mixed in. And the adventures were kind of like training you. I felt like the Sky Scale one, it was like, it literally says like prepping you for battle or something, and then you had to go through a race, you had to go through the rings while destroying the targets, which I did wrong at the first part because I didn't read it properly, because I never do that. That wasn't Arena Net's fault, that was my fault. And I found that fun because it was new. And then I did the other adventure as well, where you're in the air and you're trying to avoid the cryptids like blowing like mini wind funnels across the air, and you're trying to get the energy to fuel something for your attack or something. I can't remember what it was specifically. Wait a minute, actually, is it here? No, that's the race.
That does make me a bit sad though, because like that's the intention that I was looking for. Almost like a very structured quest line, so that you could get more of a story and more of a sense of preparation.
Yeah, I had fun doing that.
With adventures being a part of that, I thought that was actually really interesting and kind of new. I don't remember the last time we had an adventure tied into the main storyline in a meaningful way. The one that I did was with Faithin, and it was about like freeing the dead Cryptis essence and letting them rest.
I did that one, yeah.
Which I liked. I was like, that was a bit of the story that I wanted. I think that was the one where you're collecting the orbs, trying to escape the blower thing.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. So I did it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there was story to that, which I loved.
Yes.
But I didn't even know there was like more adventures. I would have gone and done those to see if they also had dialogue and story.
You just had to open your map, Kroof.
I did, but then I saw big green circles, and I was just like, let me just go to that area. And I was like,
yes,
oh, okay, we just gotta fight.
Because they were the events as well, and I thought the green ones meant they were. That is one thing that was communicated better, I think, because I think in other patches we've had the it was just do any events, and it was nice to be like it pointed you to events, whereas like this is more specific to this. Like if you do these, it will burn the bar more. And I think, that was still the other, maybe that was just any events like this one as well as included. So that I thought that was kind of cool. And they were okay. Like there was a sense of danger, I guess. And there were people kind of going towards the tower, but still, at least it was new-ish kind of stuff. So there was that, I guess. But I didn't mind it too much. Like I don't mind... The green bar, I don't think the bar is ever going to go away. I just think they're going to have to do it in a way that is more engaging, like I say, in more like line with the story and just a bit more connected. And it doesn't feel like you're just kind of doing this thing again as filler, because they do need to have something in between. And when you investigate the map, but if it's like people said, where it feels like kind of empty and it doesn't feel like it draws you in and immersive, then you get disconnected from the story and you get disconnected from what you're actually doing in the first place. And then you're kind of just filling a bar and that's it.
They're asking a lot of this little map. They are, no matter how lovely crafted it is, they're asking a lot because you had to spend such a long time here. So I feel like they've put themselves at a disadvantage because of that.
I agree. I also think it's so important because I think this would have been very different if we had had a new map, like a whole-on new zone, and then they'd been like, explore this zone and do stuff, right? The fact that the major crux of much of the story and questing that we've had for the past 2 releases have been on Nyos, and again, that there wasn't a huge variance or, you know, all kinds of different things or additional stuff. It's all been on Nyos. And then it also, we've had this exact same mechanic on this map multiple times. And I am really glad that they added the adventures and things. I think those are fun. I think they're great to have additional content. And I think that, honestly, if they had like put these additional adventures and other stuff and like revealed another layer of the map, even in the patch before this, I would have been like, oh, cool. So we have some other additional things and there's some other fun little things to do. But when you're coming into like the finale episode, I really think you need to, from a narrative standpoint, focus on that aspect, right? Like, this is going to be the finale. What haven't we brought together? What haven't we done? So to kind of start things off with like another loop of the map, and also to be like, oh yeah, there was these just kind of like fun little things that you could do like right at the start, to me does not feel like, at least from a narrative standpoint, like this is how we are going to set, drive, and pace a finale for an expansion. Like I liked that they did have I liked that they kind of had a bit of a tie to some of the story stuff. But it felt so disconnected, right? Because the narrative itself at this point is about how supposedly our forces have been fighting a war of attrition against eparchs, and that we already had this small dwindling force. We failed to secure the greater support when the queen sacrificed herself. So now we have this little group of forces that are being whittled down and whittled down and whittled down, and we don't know why eparch isn't just finishing us off. And that's a great hook. So for me, the momentum would be then that the activities, the events, the quests, the story instances, the things that we're doing should have us immersed in that experience with the forces who are being whittled, watching as allies are being dragged off and we don't know why they're not being killed, getting pieces of information about this, the demons like, you know, scouting or whatever, and sensing with this emotional resonance that they have that, you know, the thing everybody's been so scared of with eparch for so long is that he consolidates all of his power. He always has. And, you know, he's got huge forces behind his gates. And like, all of that's a great premise, but the actual action, and I think the events and things that we need to be a part of need to drive us towards that point. If the question is, you know, how long can we hold out and why hasn't he just finished that or finished us, then we need to be driven that way to like learn more, feel the plight, have this kind of built up. Because I think between this and then a few of the other things, because I'll say at this point in the story with the event bar, I ended up kind of organically being wrapped into the map meta. And, you know, sometimes they'll use the event bars as a way to key you into the fact that this might be a time that you would do the meta organically in the story, which was not necessarily the case for this release. And it's not always the case. But I ended up doing the meta, and I was so confused. Like, can I just say,
were you
like,
confused with the meta?
The meta's so good. The meta's amazing. I love the meta.
Oh no, yeah.
but like where we were with the story that I had just done and like doing the event loop, and then like suddenly we're pushing into his castle and we're fighting these other things, and I was like, wait, hold on a second, did I like miss what's happening? And then like the big old spider and then everything else, and I was like, okay, well maybe this will just make sense when I do other stuff. And like now, having gone through it and done the meta a second time, I now logistically know where it is supposed to fit in the story, in the lead up to that big instance that you have where you actually then with your allies push deeper into the castle and go, you know, into it and confront him in Zakiros in front of the throne. But there were these strange gaps. Everything from like the meta being something you were kind of organically rolled into there, the events not having to necessarily do with the actual kind of momentum or mysteries or points of the story, the meta then having this discrepancy where like certain characters from the Astral Ward show up to help, but there's not like a story moment that shows us having them have a change of heart unless you catch it in the meta. Like I didn't even, Dagda just like showed up later in the story and I was like, oh, Dagda's here now in the story.
That's what I said as well. I was just like, hey,
confusing.
No, that was I think from the instance where, to go back a little bit, because I did like what you talked about with Paitha.
Okay.
Or like the assassination instance. The instance after we do the green bar, we head into this instance where we are basically talking about our defenses. And Paitha, that's when Paitha brings up, I've been observing our defenses for the past weeks, and we could have been struck down at any single moment. Why has Eparch not done this? And then there's an assassination attempt on Paitha. You have to defend her. And I felt like two things. It was like the moment of Chekhov's gun where I was then keyed into, okay, there is a reason Eparch has not killed us yet. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be like a flip. There's going to be some type of spin on it. So I was keeping that in mind, continuing my playthrough. But then also what you were talking about, Rook, in terms of showing a different side to Paitha, and like, or at least unraveling more of who she is. There's a part after you quell the assassination attempt where she starts laughing and then turns to Ramses and is like, do you smell that? It's fear. And it's like this really, I will say that was very eerie, and at least it perked my interest of like, okay, Paitha, what are you doing here? Like, that's a little sus. Okay, I was like, I was along with you. You're like saving your friends and your family and your cryptists, but then all of a sudden you're like relishing in this sense of like people fear me. And then I was like, do they fear Paitha? Are they fearing Eparch? Why is she enjoying this so much? So that was a little bit of me, or a moment where I was actually kind of interested in the story from a perspective of trying to get at who Paitha is. So I enjoyed that part, but I will say it never really went to a degree that was almost like a revolutionary moment for the player, the viewer of the story, where you're like, ah, I get it, it clicks. I never really had that moment. I'm still in that area of, I don't fully trust her anymore, and she's a little spooky.
I kind of felt like they were forced to be here. Like that was my fear. Like, it was not fear, that was my feeling.
I think it was so like
feeling like, because the fear was not, I don't think the fear was Paitha. I think the fear was Eparch. Like, that's what I got from it. I was like, it felt like they were forced to be there, and it was very unorganized, because it was just, it wasn't really even an assassination attempt. It felt very like half-hearted and forced, and just like, go try and kill him and like give it a bash, see what happens kind of thing. Like, it just felt like he was committing forces just to like, and he knew they were gonna die or something. It's like a
but then I'm like, but then the cryptists actually see Paitha as a threat, because if you're told from your general that go and attack and kill them, and you're like, oh, it's like chump change, it'll be fine. But then it's like, oh, the cryptist people who are loyal to Eparch actually see her as like a major insidious threat, someone to quell Ceres and rival Eparch. So I wanted a little bit more of that, and I wanted like Paitha to lean into that more, where she's like, she knows that they fear her, and she's taking like enjoyment out of it.
Love to see
show us the Machiavellian monster. Show us the Machiavellian monster. We want to see her.
Because there's this constant running theme that the cryptists aren't like you people. Like, even in the final instance, when you're talking to one of the commanders that like came over to our side and flipped and that Paitha spared, he's constantly making this point, like, the way that we perceive things isn't the same way that you do. Like, you don't understand anything about us. And at the time when I was doing that, I like laughed and I was like, man, I would have loved to though. To have, like, boy, have I been over here this whole time dying to know more about your people and understand who you are, whether you are really predators or not, or you're driven by more complex emotions or not, or whatever it is. Because I love hearing everybody's interpretations about this beat with Paitha's assassination, because the way that I read it was that, right, like, the whole thing is banking on the fact that Eparch has everybody living in fear, because his power and the illusion of the power that he's created is absolute. But in reality, he's devoured everyone, which has given him great power, but he has no actual forces or army, but he is trying to maintain the illusion that he does. And so her laughing at that, to me, was the key turn, the lock clicked and it opened, where she realized they aren't attacking us in this assassination force because they, you know, I mean, yes, they consider her a threat. Eparch realizes that she is a legitimate threat, right? But the key, the revealed hand, that is like exposed in that act, is that they are attacking her out of fear because they don't have an army. They actually have very limited forces. Eparch has consumed everything in his own desire to hoard the power into himself. And so the only way that they have to actually strike at her without him alone having to face her is to send a small force. And that the fear is that like veil being lifted. And when she realizes that they're not actually at a disadvantageous position, because this whole time they've been assuming that they couldn't rival his forces, when in reality, something is happening that is causing them, even in an assassination strike, to feel fear. And so she realizes that there may be a strategic opportunity to attack him directly, even though they have been made to believe they're on the back foot, which is also another example of the fact that, to some degree, we at least see the story try to establish that Eparch is manipulative in the way that Paitha claims, but we don't see the same for Paitha. So again, I honestly would have loved to see some of the complexity of the natures of the Cryptus and how the emotions they feed on affect them, and whether or not that's like internalized as their own morality, or if that is a reflection of the sources of feeling that are prevalent in the world. And in that case, can you say that a monster born of just mortal emotion is a monster any more than a mortal? Like, there's so many interesting things you could do with this, let alone the fact that when we actually get to those Cryptus essences, right? There's a bunch of very touching scenes of like, I'm with people I love and I'm happy. Like, I'm on a hill eating food that I caught and I am content. And I was like,
that confused me. That really confused me. Yeah, I have to agree with you. I wasn't confused at all when Paitha started laughing. She had realized that he was a paper tiger. Mm-hmm. She had. Mm-hmm. And it was obvious. And every part of the story, they've hammered home that he consumes everybody. And it's kind of like, well, no shit, Sherlock. Yes, okay, this is the thing that's happening. So when we flung open the doors a little bit further on in the story, we see this strange sort of reliquary of essences. It wasn't as a kind of, it didn't surprise me, because they'd done a good job. They telegraphed the story. They telegraphed his intent. What I was confused about, because I hadn't got rolled into the meta automatically, was how the fuck did I get here? What has happened? Where am I? What's going on? I'm like, what? And I'm like, did I just like have a stroke between this part and that part? What's happening?
That is the exact thing that happened to me. I went into the instance, I saw that I was in the tower, and I said, let me play the meta event.
Literally about to get this right now. Like, this is it. Because I went to the, what was it? Is it Tekla or Tekla or something? Yeah. And I was like, ooh, voice thing. And they sound kind of cool. And then they were like trying to get you to find all these different artifacts or whatever. And I was like, oh, cool. I'll do that later. And then, where is it?
Yeah.
trying to go to the instance. There we go. It was actually the first thing I was like, ooh, loading screen. So good. And it was very, very good. The art is...
That art is amazing.
Some of the best art I've seen.
I kind of wish it was what his throne room looked like.
I know. Like, straight up, again, this is what I mean. Like, Secrets of the Obscure has some of the best ideas in it. Like, it has such a cool concept. I love that concept art of him. I would have loved if we had even gotten more of this sense of the web he had spun through Nios and, like, information about how he even uses it, right? Like, it would have been so cool if these tendrils he had sent throughout the realm were like, because we've discovered that from his throne, he could emotionally sense, or like even from great distances all the way across, like he could sense the locations of other, you know, cryptis and like scuttle to harvest them, or like all the concept is there and it's so cool. Like, but
I read that in the opposite way, that he was feeding him his throne, his power, that was like coming into him. Like that's how I read it. It was like all of the like, yeah, but like that's a good point as well, because if he does do that and he ingests all of this, he kind of, yeah, I guess we never know whether or not they get just emotional power, or like is it strength power? Like I think I'm a little bit confused about that. Maybe someone knows, but like, or is it like a mixture of tons of things, or is it like memories? And
meta also kind of talks about that a little bit, but it is kind of like that continued imagery. And so it gives you the instance to go in. However, the best way to encounter the story was, in my opinion, to do the meta event first and then head into that story instance.
I mean, it sounds like it was the way to do it. Yes. I don't think it's probably the best way. I think it's the way.
It is the way. And I really hope that they have like a patch where they will at least add on that story mission indicator, say like in parentheses optional, attempt the Spider's Lair meta event before entering the instance. They actually don't. They only did it in End of Dragons.
Did they only do it in End of Dragons? Oh,
they only did it there. They didn't do it for any of the other expansions.
But they did do it, and that was the last expansion.
But they didn't do it, which I was like, I thought you would have learned from this, especially if you're having a meta event that is so pivotal to understanding your final story instance.
Look at my face. Look, I'm like, what? Why are we here?
Yeah.
That was the face. That is the face where I'm like, what?
I would love for them to at least direct players to that so they can fully understand it. But the meta event I was so happy about, because when we first saw Eparch, I was kind of like saddened to see that this spider imagery that they were continuing to create around Eparch was like, oh, he's kind of just like a lanky, tall demon boy. Mm-hmm. But when you get closer and closer, it's like he really is a spider drawing you into his web. And it is very impactful. And I think that the meta event is probably my most favorite payoff in terms of the story out of this entire experience. And it is him just like in his juiced up form, feeding off of emotion. And
right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how much we want to talk about the meta event, but it was, and I failed it. And
show it, actually.
I want to give props, and I kind of want to say, if you are a story lore nut freak, it's kind of worth also failing the meta event in its own unique way.
Oh, really?
To stick around to see what the story would be if you fail the meta event, which I thought was so cool.
I kind of want to find out myself then.
I'm so sad because I didn't do the meta event, it colored my perception of the story going in, and I was like, how is it that this character has been built up to such a degree, to the nth degree, and then we kill him and he's not even a strike boss. He's not even an anything. I just kill him in a story instance and we're done. I'm like, how is
there
this
as well? God damn it.
This is where Zoja and Dagda come in.
God.
They arrive in the meta event.
At the end of the story, I was like, where the flip was Zoja? Now the next
I was so confused. I was so confused. I'm like,
So
you
funny.
made such a big entrance. I'm thinking, what are they talking about? I have no idea, because if you go and talk to them in the prologue instance, when the credits are rolling, you say this to her as if you had gone to the meta event, but I hadn't. I
didn't know what was going on.
Lost.
Yeah, I was just like, I probably missed it because I normally do, and I was probably missed it.
I mean, honestly, I think this is something that is a really big takeaway for me, in general, for the future, looking ahead to Guild Wars 2 storytelling, right? Guild Wars 2 is truly a brilliant game in that they try to do action-based storytelling in a way that so few other games do. And I love that. I love that, when I eventually found out as I played through the game that, like, yeah, if you follow all these event chains, if you do these metas, if you do all these things, you get these incredible stories. You get these pieces of dialogue. You get this immersive narrative about a zone that you're in, or a place that you're in, or the metas that run concurrent with finales of portions of the expansions or other stuff like that. And it's really cool. It's very, very cool. But there is also something that I think has to be said about not relying entirely on that to communicate your story to players. Because the thing is that when you are in the middle of a huge action-packed thing,
oh my God.
You may or may. Did you just see his actual final form? Yeah.
No. I just like it's before that. It's just like
see.
you're actually in the next part of the map, which I never got to.
Yeah.
I never got to see through the story.
You never got to.
No,
Oh, yeah, you're right. You haven't
bypassed
done
the
it.
whole thing. I literally
It's really
just did the
beautiful.
story.
Why would you? Why would you?
There's no
not
reason to.
That's true.
There's not any events over there. It's only there for the meta. Like, you can go over and you can get the points of interest and
my
stuff.
God.
But like,
You'll die first.
yeah,
'cause
but like
there's
not
a bubble that kills you.
Yeah. Until like the actual meta is unlocked. So like when you get that event, you're not even exploring the approach to the castle or anything like that. So like, again, they need to clearly tell you when you need to do a meta event. Like, it needs to say, just like we said with End of Dragons, which was a great change, to say, do the meta event here, this is part of the story. But then they also, within the actual narrative quest log storytelling, need to make sure that if there is a pivotal moment of narrative or character growth, that it is not something that is exclusively relegated to like a meta, right? Because the culmination of both parts of this whole year-long expansion is the Wizard's Tower folks agreeing to help the Cryptus or refusing to help the Cryptus, why they have chosen to do this, and how these two sides form some kind of peace moving forward. So if you have major characters like Dagda and Zoja who have a change of heart for whatever reason, and you don't have an actual like playable story moment where you see them choosing to do that, or you even get a moment because they arrived and like you get a cutscene after you complete the meta or something, like you can instance into that story and you see them like pop through the portal and like you say like, I saw that you came in the fight against blah blah blah, and they tell you about like why they did, and they confront Patha, and maybe some of them are like, oh, I still have some reservations or whatever, or Patha wins them over but there's some undercurrent and you're not sure if she's fully altruistic or whatever it is. Like, there needs to be a reason, because as it wasn't until after all of this, when you get the bonus dialogue with them at the very end of the instance, if you go around and you talk to everybody, that you even get like an acknowledgement from them as to why they may or may not have chosen to go help the Cryptus. And we've made no other diplomatic forays ourselves as a playable character to try to reconcile these two sides. So if you don't do the meta, or if you do the, like, there's just this huge gap. And to me, that's a failure of the storytelling. Like, you should see the approach to the castle. Like, you should be given a moment in the story where you and the army that you can see behind you approach it, and you get a pan of the
Even
castle.
if it's just a cutscene, yeah.
Yeah. And there's something about like, we have to launch the assault, and then after you complete that quest, there's a note in your log, do the meta or don't, like it.
Yeah, like it adds to the story like they do with End of Dragon. So the boss that's on here
that
now,
Epoch?
that's not Epoch.
No,
That's
it's
not
one
Epoch.
of his gatekeepers.
It's a gatekeeper,
So
yeah.
it's one of the ones that you fight
looks
before you get into the
wicked.
2 Citadel paths.
It's got this that you can see like little legs or arms kind of swinging about and just doing this like.
Oh, if you think that's Epark, you gonna flip when you see Epark.
Okay, is it this next bit that's
they're
coming up
fairly
now?
cut.
No,
But I have to
this
give them
next
for
bit
that.
of the meta is where you split into 2 groups, one with Paitha and Dagda and Ramses. And then the
Right.
south side will be Frode and Arena. And each of them,
you go into the place.
it's worthwhile to play both because you get more perspectives on both of them. But I
Yeah.
really like the Paitha one because it's more about the Cryptus and who Paitha is. And you're basically following Paitha along and talking about just the Cryptus. And there's a part where you get down to the very lower cellar and you're fighting a named boss, a harvester. This person who collects the Cryptus to feed Epark. And Paitha just has this really cool moment where she's just like, not even for you will I spare you. Like, I will just kill you. And it's like a really edgy, impactful delivery from Paitha. At least that gives a little bit more character from Paitha that people might also miss, where you see her just kind of be brutal for the sake of brutality, when most of the time she's like, we have to turn everyone onto our side.
This
Which
is
I
cool,
really enjoyed.
though. This is like the thing. The meta is like. You remember when we were talking about the episode where it doesn't feel like they have many forces, like that it didn't feel like an epic battle or anything. Like this actually feels pretty epic. And even when you're in the fortress, like when you go into that instance, there's still like the element of like there's people lined up on the steps ready to defend, even if
Yeah.
it still feels a little bit, but like it's spacious, but like the space is explained there. Like there's a reason why people aren't around, right? And they actually do that part. But like this is all really good, and I'm gutted. I am actually gutted because I wonder.
Go play it.
Well, no, the thing is that I've already had that experience. Like I can't do that as like
That's
it's
true.
ruined it. Like it has ruined it for me because it's not going to be for the first time. Like I'm going to have to go through. It's not going to be as impactful. It's just not, because it could have been completely different. Like I'm not saying everything would have been completely different, but this part is long. Like this is a really this feels kind of epic. Like it feels kind of fun. Like I'm really gutted. Actually.
This is a spectacle, the bombast that's been missing
Yeah.
throughout all of the episodes.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And
How
but they're
gutting.
not directing
At
people to
least-
play it before they play the story. That is
That is
From a
upsetting.
gameplay
good.
perspective, it does have a lot of replayability. So that is one good thing. I did find this meta event to be really fun, especially the end boss. But from story, especially at launch, I did feel like that was a huge miss. Thankfully, I knew from the time playing Heart of Thorns, where you're supposed to, in the chronology of the story, you're supposed to fight the mouth of Mordremoth first. And just from that scarring, I was like, I know not to do this. But there are some people who have never played Guild Wars 2 before. Maybe this is their first expansion, and they're having those same wounds inflicted upon them.
Yeah, but
I
like for
did.
some reason
I
it
didn't
flowed better in Heart of Thorns. Like it just felt like there was something about it where you did things in the right order. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it didn't.
I completely missed the meta event, and
Oh, really?
it took me
I
like a
wouldn't
couple,
know.
like
Yeah, Heart of Thorns was a learning curve for me because I realized that too after the fact.
Who's this then? Who's this boss? Is this another little guiding guy?
I forgot his name. He's a harvester, so I think his
looks
job was
cool.
collecting the Cryptus.
Oh, that's the
one you
person you
fight.
said. Cool.
The one you fight with Arena and Frode is actually Charybda, who is a named Cryptus throughout this entire map, which I was really happy to see that we got to fight her. And I forgot what she does, what her responsibility is, but it was nice to actually finally fight Charybda. The one thing I will say about these
Oh
named
my
Cryptus,
good lord in heaven! What the f? Like really, really? This
There
is
he
the
is.
thing, and it's like there he is. Hi. Oh my god.
so like that's
For
Epark's
God's sake! Oh, look at
true
his
form.
face. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so good.
I know.
Oh, come on, man.
Honestly, I'll be
Like,
real. I'll
really?
be real. I think the meta.
It's great.
Yeah, the meta is one of the best parts of the whole release. Like, the meta is really good. I love this, like, you're doing the flying parts, with the platforms and everything else leading up to it. You come in, you push into the castle, you fight those bosses. Like, I love the pathways. It reminds me a little bit of the final push into the keep with the Drizzlewood Coast meta and everything there. So, like, all of that's cool. And Epark's final form here is phenomenal. Like, this is another moment where in the story, I would have loved to have the actual story like pick up at the end of this, where like you get a cutscene where you see him and he's still in this form and he's, I don't know, the harvesting whatever essence, and he's this like disgusting monster and it's like dripping from his face or whatever.
That happens
and,
after the
like,
meta ends?
No. I would have loved to see what I'm saying.
Damn.
And like, and you get some kind of context or explanation for this form that he has. Maybe Pathos says something like, yes, at last you show the true form that, you've earned through whatever kind of thing, like
the true face of evil.
True face of evil. Yeah. Like, this is what you've become, or this is what you always were. We don't know if like this is his original form or not. There's not really any context given to this.
Yeah.
And we don't see it in the story. So we don't know if it's just a result of his cannibalizing all of them or what it is. But the fight against him is spicy. And like, I had to put my Jadebot down. It's chaotic. It's wild. It feels like a huge, big finale kind of thing. So to have like a follow-up quest that showed some kind of dramatic, cinematic of him or something, and then he scuttles back into the castle and Patha and the gathered forces, or even in this moment maybe we get that follow-up about why Dagda and Zoja decided to come. There's also some really interesting things here that we find out in the keep, which I saw brought up in chat, because when I was playing through it live we talked about this. There's a library book that you uncover that talks about what seems to have been a formative experience for Epark involving Mordramoth, in which he was confronted by the ravenous appetite and all-consuming destruction that was Mordramoth, and his fellow Cryptus were consumed, and he ran and theoretically met Isgarin for the first time. And so there's a lot of other questions there that I was so curious about. Like, does he take this chalk-like form because of some of the emotions of the fear of, or the creatures in the jungle, or did he make himself into what he once feared, or did he take that precedent, that all the pinnacle of power in his mind that was Mordramoth, and then follow that as a template? Plus there's great potential with like, what does that mean for Zoja here? Like watching him essentially kind of do what Mordramoth did with the blighting pods, or with harvesting the essence of creatures and life forms and converting them to his own means. Like, she's had her memories wiped, but would this cause some kind of recurrence with this? There's just a lot of interesting potential story stuff here, but we don't get the supporting story beats around it. But the meta is like, it's so cool. And I love too that it's kind of an interesting format. Kroof was actually telling me when I was playing through it, because they were hanging with the stream. Yeah, about do you want to explain to people a little bit about how the actual like flow of the meta map works that you were telling me?
It's fairly simple. It's kind of a unique trigger for the meta. You have to complete both sides of the two initial bosses. So you have to kill Ignaxius in Hator's territory, and then you have to kill Nabalog in Nidra's surround. So once you kill both of those legendary bosses, then the meta event for the Spider's Lair will trigger. So it's almost like you're cutting down the big forces of Epark.
How long
to
is
then
that
allow you.
Whole thing?
I think they've toned the other bosses down. Like, I think Ignaxius is a little bit easier. And Nabalog is also, I think, people have been able to do it pretty quickly, so it doesn't take too long. Yeah, I'd say like an hour around. Riley really in chat.
Thing?
The entire thing, probably. Like, if people focus on the events pretty quickly, it can get done in like an hour and a half, I think, or so.
Yeah.
It can be a bit longer depending on when you jump into the map. Oftentimes maps are always running, so you'll come in where they have killed one of the two bosses, or they just finished both, so you're already on the Spider's Lair event. But I like that the map kind of has agency over if they want the meta event to trigger or not. So I thought that was pretty cool. But the story implications are huge, and I highly recommend anyone to go through this meta event at least twice, 3 times. And it's also a little bit difficult. I've completed it successfully twice, and I have just failed it twice. His health bar is really big, and there are a lot of mechanics flying around at any given moment, and it needs a little bit of organization, I think, from squads. Maybe at least for the first month, but I think people will pick it up pretty quickly after this. But I really think, because you only see this model in the meta, I really would have loved in the story instance, which we might kind of transition into for like the final part.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen him actually transform into his spider form in that final instance where he has slaughtered and absorbed the hundreds of cryptish souls when you eventually get up into his territory, into his citadel. And we just kind of fight at Bark. And I think it would have been great to also have his true form come out as well, where you actually see him as the Spider King that he is.
Absolutely. Because
100%.
missed that whole thing. Because this was me. This was the next thing. Like you got that meta and that epic experience, and then thingy, and I got some little merc scavengers. And I was like, cool. So it was. I'm just emotional. It's unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
This is a spoiler stream, so do you all want to know what happens if you fail the meta?
Can I say no?
Sure.
Because I want to find out tomorrow. I do want to have a little bit of
Is there any guarantee you're gonna fail it?
Well,
You
maybe.
might only win
I
it,
mean,
and what then?
probably. But like, if I do, like, I would like to find out for myself if that's okay.
That's fair.
Sorry, I would like to and do that because and we can talk about it next time. We'll put it at the top of the list. Sound good? I know you're disappointed. I'm sorry.
No, you have to have something special to yourself that
I have
is
to have
not already
something. I
completely
missed the
shattered.
entire meta. I just watched it.
Yeah.
Like,
So I wish you nothing but the worst. I hope you absolutely
I
fail.
hope I fail. I'll fail on purpose.
I hope the entire meta event. I hope you're the only one in there.
Yes.
I think if you don't get below 20% by like 2 minutes, it's kind of a fail usually.
Okay. All right. I'll remember. I'll get
interesting.
people
I
in
did
from the
it-
stream to fail it on purpose. Let's do this.
I did it twice on stream, and both were successes, but one was a lot spicier than the other. And yeah, just do yourself a favor, set that J-bot, because I also have the worst sense of direction of any person that ever exists, and I tried to like find my way back down into the palace and around, and I was like, I got lost halfway through, kept going back outside, like.
Thankfully, there are ley lines that will take you to the stairway down below. But even then,
Once
you turn a
learn.
corner and then you're going up and you're like, oh wait, I have to go back.
But like once
Yeah.
you figure it out, you realize like where you're going and what you're doing. And the whole aesthetic of his palace is also so Diablo, and it's so like, I love like the weird flesh walls that look like God's skin apostles from Elden Ring, and like
I
all
wanted
the like
more. I wanted more of this in the
Yeah.
map in Nios
Yes.
to at least break up the visuals a little bit.
Exactly. Or like
Yeah.
a variant, you know what I mean? Because we see these like really cool old ruins that almost look human-esque, but like we don't really learn about them. We don't learn about how the nature of dreams morphed the realm, if it did at all. To see areas where this growth had become so prevalent and was just so nasty and gnarly, and like that would have been really cool too. But this last portion, at least, it's very striking, and especially when you have been on the sort of more muted color palette of the rest of the map that just has like accents of red, to then just be like completely submerged in the heart of this, just like, I mean, growth, right? It's almost got this like malignant growth feel to it. I thought that was all really effective as well, and the meta itself is super fun, so definitely do it. I'm sure everybody will at some point, but I thought that was like one of the best parts of this last release for me, at least. And I mean, the connections going into this final story instance, because that's what we were going to talk about next, right? Like, I will say this, at least for the range, like the breadth of the actual playable instance, this was really the major piece of substance other than that assassination bit that we got.
Can I stop a little bit because we're kind of going forward, and I kind of wanted to hear a little bit from Fornax because we haven't really heard from Fornax much. Before we move forward with this part, because it's very cool. But I wanted to, because I don't think Fornax, you got to talk maybe much about how you feel about missing the meta kind of thing, like I did, and I feel like you might have some thoughts.
Do I have? I have some feelings.
Oh no!
Because I think I think it's important. I do. I wanna like this. We're being kind. We're being critical, but like and that's okay. We're doing it respectfully, and you have thoughts.
You don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so sad and so sorry that I've missed this extraordinary meta. And it's not as if I'm like a new kid on the block here. I've been playing since before Guild Wars 2 was a thing, and I played extensively all of the expansions, and I foolishly thought that if it was something narratively appropriate, that they would direct me to it, that there would be a thing that says, now go here, now complete this, or it could have been part of another bar that you have to fill up the meta bar. So you do the meta and you have and it spits you out at the end. Because I was so confused. I was so deeply confused as to how I'd got there, why I'd got there. And again, I think that as with so much of the Neos content, a couple of well-rendered, well voice acted cutscenes could have solved a lot of the problems that we've had with the narrative, a lot of the bridging content. But it's just, I don't know, man. It's disappointing. The connective tissue is the connective tissue is there. So you've got the bones of a great story. You've got an event team that can make fantastic content that people want to engage with, although it, as I said, hard pressed to have people playing for 9 months on a very small map with limited content. I mean, best will in the world, people are going to get bored with it, right? But to have such a disconnect between the two, so if every 3 months we're getting something, okay, that's great. So you have to do it like it is an episodic thing where you have a cliffhanger and you have a big ending and a cliffhanger so that people are interested and excited for the next things to come along. And there's not really been that excitement. There hasn't been really we haven't had that narrative hook to make us excited to run back to our computer to find out where the story is going, because we've always known where the story is going. It's not a surprise that we went to his castle and beat 10 girls of shit out of him. It's not it's just not. It's not. So yeah, crap. Please patch this. Please patch it, because I wouldn't want someone. Because I love the story, and I know that a lot of people love the story, and I hope that they don't play it this week, and that they patch it, and so that everybody gets to play the meta first, because that's the story we deserve, and that's the story that these characters deserve, right?
I think
it was shit.
I think the
Sorry,
word
guys.
yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Like that's why I wanted you to say something, because I feel like we had a completely different experience, and literally didn't know until we went live. Like we were live, the intro music was going, and Crew was like, "Oh yeah, the meta and all that kind of stuff." I'm like, what?
The meta was a part of the story. We're like, yeah.
There was. I didn't even know there was a meta. Like, I assumed there wasn't. I just was going to play it later. I just thought it'd be disconnected. But I think for me, like before we get to this final part, the theme of this expansion, and this is all going to be learned from, and I guarantee they're going to grow from this. But to be critically and respectful as I possibly can, which is it's not respectful. It's just me. It's just honest. The theme feels like disconnection. It feels like a disconnection of teams talking to each other and linking content to each other, a disconnection from the characters, a disconnection from even the map and from like the flow. It feels like that is the word I'm going to put for me on this this expansion. It feels disconnected. I feel disconnected from it. I feel disconnected from most of the stuff other than the meta events, which are so good. And I've had so much fun with that. But the story is genuinely good. Like, there's so much there that can be gone deeper. Like, and the thing is that they just didn't have time. They could have done this over 2 expansions easily. They easily could have done this with more maps, with different maps. If they've had maps in there. And we're going to go next week. I'm trying not to go into the idea of what the expansion is and how they should do it, because I want to do that next time. I am gutted that I missed that meta and I didn't do it with the story. I'm with you completely, Vornax. I'm really... I was already in a place where the story kind of just felt really disjointed anyway. And then to find out there was literally a whole part of the story that I missed because I didn't know about it. And it would have just been like, all it had to be was that Ender Dragons little notification, top right hand corner, or in the little quest line that comes up, or an alert on the screen before doing the final chapter. Doing the meta will give you a little bit of it will give you the missing.
And it's not like you have to complete it and like win it. It's just at least get all the information up to that point, or as much as your group will get, so that you're at least primed so you can make that decision if you want to.
They don't sell the content to us in the way it should be delivered. It's like achievements. It's like all this other stuff where they're like, here's this epic content that fits here and you could do it and it's going to be so good and fun, and they don't tell us about it like in the way which feels like where it should be. And I'm just like, this feels like a thing which we keep going down as well, and I'm like, damn it, man, come on.
And I think I was just going to say, I think a big part of this, too, is the fact that the first 2 portions of the meta, they both have, like, interesting new mechanics and little phases, and the bosses themselves aren't, like, wildly difficult, but, like, I don't dislike the structure of the other portions of the meta, but from the narrative aspect, again, I think that point that was made about disconnection is so huge. Because there are aspects of the story that I do feel are represented in parts of the meta, but the actual, once again, like driving action, cohesion of narrative, and or what you are supposed to be taking away from a lot of this, being married with the gameplay aspects on the map, it feels much, much, much more discombobulated versus something like Drizzlewood, for example. Drizzlewood, I think, is an incredible example of a multi-stage release map that has like direct connective and thematic ties into the story, right? The fact that like the people that you kill in the first half of the map are like what all of his you're gonna have to forgive me, but I'm so bad at names. All of like Ryland's warband members, and like there's all these layers to like what you're seeing and how you're witnessing the Civil War kind of unfold. And then as you're like pushing through that, you're realizing that like you are giving him fodder to hate you even more, but like you're doing kind of what has to be done. And then as you push into the second half of the map and you're going through and fighting the the forces with Jormag, and that like amazing moment where like all of the corrupted forces fall back across the bridge at the end of it, when they were like that sort of in between moment, but it leaves you hanging knowing that like even though they're back across the bridge and you've pushed your way this far, that there's still this whole other corrupted force ahead of you that you have to fight. And I think we were really lacking the same kind of marriage that we got. So I don't blame either of you for not keying into the fact that the meta might have had such a big role to play in what we would get narratively, because the first 2 sections, while the actual gameplay and the meta and the other stuff, like those elements, I think had a lot of interesting things in them. Again, they weren't really directly hugely tied into the story itself. Like when I was doing those portions of the story live with the 2 smaller releases, I asked everybody in chat, is there a specific place that I should do the metas? And they said, no, it doesn't really have anything to do with the story. So when both of the previous portions of the metas released in a 3-part map, which again, I think it was a little bit much to put on this map specifically. Like when both of those previous metas don't necessarily have strong ties to the story that has been delivered, and very limited story at that, right? So like, I think they could have used the extra narrative capacity of using those metas more to their advantage. Like, of course you're not going to be like, oh, I bet you this last part of the other 2 metas that didn't matter for story is going to be the crux of the major, like, you know, massive, large-scale action that I'm going to get from this particular story beat. Because again, I think from something like a finale, you would expect that the story itself alone would better support in those playable instances, and or something like a final strike mission, and or you would expect, even if they had used the fractal as like a final, you know, like the final story thing or something, you know, like you don't expect that the entire crux of a lot of that is going to be contained in something like the meta. And to be fair, the next story instance does give you some more meat to, you know, to kind of get out of the experience. But overall, the narrative scale of the finale, I think, just didn't do enough on its own to really support the story that was being told without that content adjacent to it. And even with that meta in there, I still would say that I think the finale fell short of what it needed to deliver for the size and scale and scope of the expansion.
For sure. But it wouldn't have been such a, like, it wouldn't have been such a, because there was just such a big gap. It's not even just just not even, it's like, hey, assassination. And you're in.
We're in a territory now. It is quite a large
How did
jump.
It happen? Why are we here?
Jarring.
Was this just like a little portal we made, or did, like, you know, I had so many questions, and my ADHD brain was like, there was so many questions. I need structure for that, and
I almost committed to the story instance because on the first couple days, the Frode was bugged, so sometimes the one event was not actually able to be completed. Thankfully, I found a map that was successful. It did not bug out, which was another pain point, I think, in terms of delivering content that is functional. And it wasn't even new content. It was Frode in the old part of the map that suddenly bugged out again. And it was impossible to complete. So that was kind of a souring, but thankfully it's been fixed. Right? Yeah. It's been fixed and it's much more smooth now, so that's good.
Let's roll on to the last bit then. So we definitely we've spent some time on this today. That's for sure. Which is good. And it's worth spending the time, but we've actually talked about it longer than the entire story instances when how long it took me to do it, because it was, I mean, this stream is 2.25 hours, and I had to replay the last instance because my internet connection died. So like, and I got to the end, and it like to the end part of the instance, so that I'd already played half an hour of it. So if you just play this without the meta, it's like an hour and 15 minutes ish.
Did it not save any points?
No, it does not. No. Not one.
Isn't that like a tech that they usually do now? Like they have like save points?
No, the tech is, I think, just instances within episodes. Like if they're instances, but there's no instance in this. It's just one. The whole time you just open doors. So there's no. So if you DC or if there's a bug, you have to start the whole thing again. And that was wild to me. I was like, so that knocks me a bit. And, that's not their fault that I DC'd. I wouldn't have had that experience. But, I was really hoping in the chat, I was hoping that there was going to be a skip or like just, you hit this checkpoint. You don't have to repeat every single thing again. But I did. And that's not Arena's fault, but, maybe the whole idea of not having a checkpoint is. Anyway. So we are going up the stairs, and I actually really enjoyed this because I didn't get the meta, but I did want to have some kind of experience of going up into the fortress and knowing, and there was some forces there, more than 7 people defending the queen or whatever her name was. So I like that, and then you get to the room here.
Poor Labris,
yeah. Just dealt a really harsh deal, I think, honestly. like many of the characters. And then we got into this hall. Now, I have mixed feelings about this because I didn't know what they were talking about. I was like, I get what you're talking about, but what are these little things on the wall? And then they started to explain a little bit more. But I felt like this could have been different. The experience here. They could have been like corpses or something, like strewn on the walls and the floor, and like, you know, half-eaten cryptids like twisted and messed up, and like maybe even like, you know, do you know what I mean? Like struggle. And I was just kind of like, this just looks like an empty hall with fire in it. And I was like, are they in the fire? Like, where are they?
I also thought they were
so happy we all shared this. I was literally like, wait, there were apparently hundreds of cryptids right behind this door. And I'm like, oh, there's just fire pits and what are these things?
Any mess,
I was very confused. I was like expecting bodies at least.
Yeah.
Because then they were like,
made them into topiary cryptos. It's very strange.
Like
it was like he's consumed them. They're not even here. And I was like kind of lost for a bit.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
It's like he's a really like polite
so...
eater that just not messy at all. I just can't imagine that being a thing. But like, you know, I'm just really good with my napkin, you know, like, you know.
To sushi. Oh my gosh. It's so strange.
I really love the concept of it because essence has played a role since the initial release, right? Like there's the whole meta portion where you're collecting essence around the forge. There's these different, right? So like the idea of essence and emotional residue having a power is something that they've established throughout the whole expansion. And I like the idea that, like, sure, yeah, I guess to a cryptis, right? Like your physical form seems to have very little bearing generally as far as like a personal identity, or it seems to be molded more so by the things that you consume. So like juicing them to get their essence juice out, I guess it's definitely a way that you could do this. But I agree in that it would have been, I think, just so much more illustrative to actually have some kind of journey through that realization. Like ESO does this thing where you get like sometimes when you're moving through like a building or a dungeon, right, they'll have these like kind of framed windows, or they don't always do like a forced perspective on it, but they're kind of like a little sneaky way to kind of draw your eye to something, right? So I could have easily just have seen like you going through this kind of castle and you see some kind of opening in the wall and you peer through it and you see on the other side this like vignette of like cryptis, like that you may have even seen be captured and dragged off the field in earlier portions of the meta, who now are being like squeezed of all of their emotion, the aspects that are a part of them. And maybe you see something or hear something about the emotions that fed them or that they had, or you know, because I do like the touch of like going around to the reliquaries and kind of getting a residue of who was once there.
Absolutely.
But I think that again, like the storytelling here is missing a beat, because like you're right, we don't see visually signs of suffering, of carnage, of it's.
I like that in chat, what Tempest said. Getting the dialogue through the door. It's audio. Just audio. Even if like you've got the essence and stuff around, even if you like went through a piece of essence or you went through something and then suddenly there was this like scream of like the past and what had happened to them, because you get the emotional part of it. Like there's these emotions, but why isn't there sound that goes with this? Because that would have been so good. Can you imagine like like actual pain and like fear and anger, and it would have just given you so much depth here.
Can you imagine the potential of that, of doing that? Like, I love what you've just suggested, Jebro, and having that even be a way that we get to in some way experience what it is to be a cryptis.
Exactly.
Like if as you're going through this Patha, like, you know, this whole time, if there's this point that's constantly being made about the cryptis and how different they are, and like, you know, they're monsters or whatever it is, and, you know, the cryptis saying like there's no way that, you know, anyone would understand us or our society or whatever it is, and then you go through something like this where you are experiencing the raw essence, and whether that even puts you into some kind of like playable thing. I think using audio, I think using the visuals, I think using whatever, but like even if you were like briefly stepping into the cryptids themselves or like experiencing something or having some kind of emotionscape, and Paitha is telling you about like, you know, whatever things, you know, that the cryptids experience and you're experiencing it firsthand, and that there's a range of emotion they experience. Or if the point is that Eparch has only allowed them to feed off of, you know, fear and anger and, you know, to like become these monsters, maybe you experience something about what that was. Maybe you find some ancient essence that he has laying around or something, and you get a different slice of what cryptids are, or whatever it is. Like that could have been so interesting, and that could have given us like an experiential connection into who and what the cryptids are. That's not just the journal entries and not just, but that, like, you know, Paitha could then make a point to you about the role that emotions play, and that, you know, to like the cryptids, that, you know, that landscape, that emotion, that range is something that is formative to them, and that there is some kind of connection to mortal life for some reason that we might be able to bridge the gap in understanding one another, or that if we can, you know, give them something other than this, maybe the cryptids, you know, don't have to just be reduced to the horrific emotions that you know, Eparch has been feeding and then consuming from them. Like, it'd be really interesting.
And there's around here where you go up to them and it says like Cryptus memory, right? Like that's part of the achievement process. So they've got bits in there, but again, it's not feel like I went up to it. Honestly, I just hit thing and I didn't read it. But like I print screened it so I can read it later because I wanted to get on with the story. Sorry, Criff, you were talking.
I think the way this room is framed, I would have much preferred if we entered and it is very claustrophobic. I would have, for how much Eparch is made out to be a glutton, I would have loved if we entered the room and we saw him like actively siphoning a massive cryptis with like one use of a spell or something.
Yeah.
And then he escapes into his chamber. And it's this continuous momentum of trying to like get him before he fully recovers from the
that would
fight.
have been a good way to do it for the entire instance, actually. Like having that idea that you're the last stand and he's like trying to get hold of any cryptis he can just to like get more
to hold
power.
on to his spider form. So it's falling off and he's trying to consume. That would have been amazing.
That would have been
so cool.
Oh my god.
Then
it would actually be like he is a glutton. He is just eating it all.
Yeah, like to the last stand, like the last cryptis, and he just like and like eats the last one, and you're like that's where you fight him or something.
And then we think he's weak when we finally get to him, and then he spins it on us, and he's like, this was actually my plan all along. And then you would have that like, oh shit, it's game time now. So I think for this part, at least with the cryptis and him being this all-consuming, the fact that we only actually see him consume 2 people in this entire story, Labris and the one general in the final throne room, I'm like, is he really? I don't really think he's that like all-consuming. We always see this just behind the scenes where I'm like, okay.
I really wish that we had been taken to some aspect, maybe even in the story stuff here around the finale, right? We were talking about like, what's the question they've posed? It's that we don't understand why he won't attack. So we need to like piece together what's happening. And if we'd had more grounds to actually do that, where we had like, Paitha had said something like, you know what, our forces are dwindling. We don't know why he hasn't, you know, finished us off, but we can sense this emotional presence. So we have to try and rally more forces. And so that had taken us to some part of the map where Paitha's like, I know that there was a colony of, you know, whatever cryptis remained or stuff like that, that was over here last that was reported. So like, we'll go over there. And even if you had gone to some location like that, and then just found like a ghost town where like you were getting this sense that like the cryptis, like, because there's these points made in the story instance or like in the following stuff, right, about how the cryptis now are actually facing extinction because nobody has realized that, like, because he's been converting them into just emotion to feed on them, nobody has like realized in the realm that like the vast majority of cryptis have just been consumed or thrown, you know, into his forces for whatever reason. And there's even this moment that kind of culminates at the end of this story instance, right, where this was a bit of a confusing moment for me, where he turns on his own generals and consumes one of them. And like the reactions are so fast, and it's not like in a cutscene or anything, so it's hard to kind of piece this together. But it seems as though his generals are shocked by this, and some of them even start to fight with you in the ensuing fight.
I didn't notice that.
At least one of them seemed like he turned green for me and then was fighting at my side, and I was like trying to figure out why this was, because like literally
right, one of the main guys at the end.
Yeah, because like literally.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that. I did towards the end, and I was like, "Was this guy here the whole time?"
No. So,
I didn't. Thank you for that.
So he switches,
Oh my
but
God.
it's very hard to tell if that's because they are shocked at the revelation that he has eaten all of their armies, and that he would turn on them. Like, did they think they were safe? Did they not know that he was doing this, and Paitha reveals it to them? Did they? Like there's a huge question mark with this, because like literally the path that you take that leads you directly to his throne room marches you past all the people whose explicit job titles are the people who put all the souls in jars, and you like walk through the hall where, as Paitha and her commander can see, like they immediately recognize what's happened. So I can't imagine that the generals didn't know what he was doing, but perhaps they never thought they would be the ones to fall to him. So if hypothetically we had a story situation like you outlined, like we were kind of musing, right, where you're chasing him through, he's trying to reclaim or hold on to this form because he doesn't think he can defeat you otherwise, and he gathers whatever he can, and then he gets to the final chamber, and his generals, like, you get some kind of moment where, like he seems desperate, or Paitha comments on like a sense of desperation or something from him, and his generals are like, we'll take them down or whatever, and then suddenly he turns on them and consumes them, and that pushes him into this spider form again. That would have been very interesting, and it would have given us the spider form. It would have given us a more solidified moment where we see that no loyalty is great enough to protect from his own self-serving desire for consumption. Like, but we don't get any of that, so it's kind of like a big mess. But I will say that I liked this portion of the playable story the most, because it did at least give us a journey, and it gave us, some revelations, and it gave us some lore entries. But I think there are a lot of ways that it could have been more impactful, built more of a sense of, urgency and overcoming, and characterized his nature more vividly for us.
Yeah. I know Fornex had like a little. You did a noise earlier, and I wanted to ask you what that noise was.
Sorry.
You were like,
I
have the.
So I agree. I agree with everything. We should have been walking through a citadel strewn with bodies. We should have been literally wading through these poor things. I remember I was playing Seneca. It's a mental health game about a Viking woman who's going through, and she hears voices.
Oh, good lord, that game is
Senua? Hellblade?
Senua. Yeah, Blade. Right. And I played it, and I remember. It's amazing. I remember they did a very interesting thing whereby if she went into the darkness because of her mental illness, you literally started to die. And I wondered if they could have done something like that with the Cryptus Essence, where you're just wading through this emotion and it's draining you and it's actually harming you, but it could be empowering Paitha as she's wading through their misery and their sorrow, and then you could get an idea of how they feed. I feel like it was all too. I mean, I know it looked like an abattoir, but it was a bit too clean, a bit too neat, a bit too ordered for the kind of appetites that they were trying to portray that this monster had, because he comes across as quite a polite cannibal,
a distinguished gentleman. Capacity.
He is, which is kind of strange.
He cleans up. He puts the trash in the jars. He's like, okay, bye. Thanks, guys. Delicious. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
There are so many questions, right? Like, there's even areas where you could point the finger at Paitha, like, okay, well, how long were you complicit in this? Like, the man doesn't seem like he's a monster, right? Like, there has to be a way that he gained power. And, like, you get some little snippets that, like, he maybe wasn't this bad until recent years. But then where are those stories? What was the tipping point from Paitha that finally sent her into realizing what he had become? I totally agree with you, Fornax. Like, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and also, but I have to say, it's so much more jarring now that I realise that there's a meta event, because you said, oh well, maybe people won't notice. You literally get teleported inside the castle, and you have no worldly clue how you got there. You have no idea of the palace you're in because you can't see it from the outside unless the meta event is happening. I take it, okay? So it's all shrouded in this mist. There's a general at the end of the instance, which I've just figured out from what you said, was the general who turned on Eparch as he consumed his brother in the final instance. And that's when he turned to our side. So chaotic a fight, I did not notice that happening.
No, I didn't notice.
And he has this interesting political speech. He has this interesting political speech.
Really?
And I think that the politics are perfect. At the end of it, I have a conversation with this general who said, well, look, I'm here and I'm on the winning side and I'm not being held to account for feeding my entire people to this monster. So win-win for me, bitches, was basically what I got from him. And it's very politic. It is, because politics, especially like foreign politics, it's not about morals, it's not about ethics, it's about power, and that's all that matters. And it's horrific and awful, and that is the reality that's playing out here. And I completely agree, and that's why I like Isgaren's attitude towards it all, that it was never about them, and it was never about saving them. It was all about the stability of what he cared about, which was Tyria and his people, which is why he only arrived at the last minute. And that was one of the best parts, when he arrived and he lorded it over, and he was great. That was some brilliant work there. But a lot of it, they just didn't give us the time. They didn't give us the cues. You can't be enjoying narrative moments as you're running around like a blue-ass fly, trying not to be burnt by the fire of this insane monster in the middle of the... It's hard to kind of, sit back and enjoy the narrative at that point, at least for this bitch. So, yeah, there's a lot that needs to happen for the next foray into short storytelling. So good luck, kids. I'm sure that you've taken some notes.
You are
right?
wonderful. We love your face. We really do.
Like you pointed out, I think there were a few devices they used that were really successful in this final instance. Some of those moments where Isgaren enters, or the kind of camera force perspective when you're going into the hall, I thought that was a nice way to not have to do like a full cutscene, but still give some sense of like directed artistry in the storytelling. My one little tiny note about this is that I would love when they do that if they would disable the selection border around characters, because we got this cool camera sweep, but it had selected Paitha, so she was outlined in green, and above her head it said Paitha. So
yes,
that kind of interrupts a bit of the cinematic visual that they're setting up. And I liked a lot of the set pieces. I think a lot of the ingredients in the storytelling are there and are good. One thing about Isgaren's entrance that I found a little dissonant.
I'm gonna go and load that up then, because there you go. He's coming in now.
Yes, we're on the final fight.
Oh, I see. One thing that I found a little bit dissonant about the Isgaren entrance was the fact that Isgaren, after the fact, is criticized for only coming in when he knew we would win. But when he actually comes in the fight is when we think we are going to lose, because everybody has been rendered helpless. Paitha's giving us a speech about how even with all her power and with everybody else, it's not enough to take him down. And then Isgaren enters, theoretically saving the day because he saw that he needed to intervene. So I'm assuming that it was because he realized that if he intervened, there would be enough power to turn the tides.
Yeah.
And we had shown thus far that we had done enough damage that it was more likely an outcome. But I feel like it may have been a stronger narrative beat to even have those Astral Ward that had chosen, despite everything else, to try and help us, be the ones who actually leapt in at that moment, tried to help. Dag does, I didn't know if I could trust, but having seen this stuff that happened and things like that, I will fight with you, anyone can be victim to this kind of tyranny or something like that. And seeing them kind of turn the tides because of the choice that they had made to ally despite the odds. And then have Isgarin show up and be like, once we've kind of backed him into a corner, but like, hey, I'm here, everybody. What's up?
Yeah, I'll kill steal it. Actually, I think having a larger returning cast for the Astral Ward would have also been just the perfect bow on this final scene, to have people like Dagda and Zoja and Lear, and
oh my god, Lear.
like have those three come with Isgarin to the final throne room. Is Dagda here at this point? I think
Who
so.
knows? Probably.
There, Dagda.
Yeah.
Oh, she's actually there.
Yeah, Dagda is here. I think we're just missing Zoja and Lear.
What the hell is Dagda?
She's not there.
Or did she?
She ain't there.
No, I think Dagda gets left. Arena's here, but I think Dagda gets left behind to like fortify the like the flank with General Nephis.
Oh, that might be it. Yeah, because Dagda does come into the. She comes into the building with you.
Yes, it's also confusing because we're like, why is Dagda here? Why are they here and now they're going? What's going on?
Yeah, they only came in for a second. I was like, oh, it's nice.
Yeah, and then they're like, see you bitches. Bye.
Yeah. Dagda's like, she's like, that seems scary. I'm just gonna stand here and like make sure no one comes up behind.
Also, one thing I did want to mention, which is way back at the start, and we're gonna maybe even mention that now. I don't know. Maybe I'll mention it at the end. Actually, it's a nice little thing, and I think that people here have not noticed something which I'm excited to talk about, because it could be
something in the sky,
as something from the game that we've seen and known about in the past.
Yeah, is it floating?
It might be floating.
Yeah.
Maybe we all know then.
I don't know.
I'm clueless. Are we talking about testicles?
Shit. I got told by my stream, and then I was like, what? I'm wondering if I get to see it. Okay, let's watch it. Let's see. Is it right at the end of this when they die, Krift? Can you remember?
Yeah, is it the pyramid?
The eye of Janthia?
Oh my god, you just ruined it.
Okay, so we all know. Great.
Well,
they didn't know.
Make the triangle sign. Come on, I mean.
Yeah, what are weird, mysterious floating things in the Guild Wars universe? The Eye of Janthia.
I mean, you didn't like, people didn't get it when I said that. God damn it. Where was it, Krift? I can't remember.
It persists entirely through this at like the top right. Well, if you're looking at his throne, it's towards the right.
I definitely got screenshots and didn't see it. There it is. It's right there. It's right there. There it is.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Neither did I. Someone had to tell me. I even take a screenshot. I bet you I get it in the screenshot. Yeah, there. It's there.
Oh my god. I did not know
Janthia, just watching.
It's so funny. It's right there. I took screenshots. Look how many screenshots I took. And it was right there. Like, just poking over the stairs. Oh, here I didn't. Oh my god, it was right there. Amazing. Look. Oh my god. It's Jebro. Really?
Oh my
gosh. On the right.
Is it just watching him? Or does he have possession of?
Let me just.
The Eye of Janthia is a very mysterious, independent thing that goes where it finds interest. So,
right. I mean, we see.
So that's the next expansion then, Janthia. That's where we're going.
I mean, it's a big hint, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty massive.
It has to be. It has to be. They would. It's like if Chekhov's gun. You have to show something, and you have to have some payoff with it.
Okay. Yeah.
But they've never
Revenge
really
of the
done that much
Mismatched.
before.
Yeah.
But also could just be watching as well. Like it's. Have we had it just watching them before?
Like when we fought Suwan, it wasn't there watching. Like
Should have been. That would have been funny.
I mean, given some of the stuff with the Mersat that we. Given some of the stuff with the Mersat that we even touched on with this expansion, and in like some of the discussions, what was his name? Mabon. With like Mabon and stuff, right? Like, I could see that. I mean, there's some other little tidbits at the very end as well, where they kind of, there's like, what is it? Be like a summoning back to the queen, and that it seems like something is going on with the human kingdom, or possibly with some of the little letters and things that you can read. So maybe some of that is connected. I don't know, but that's a good catch. I had not noticed the eye in his throne room.
I got shown.
Well, of course, it's connected with the Bastion of the Penitent, which is where we first really get to have a look at the demons, very close up. So
it does disappear after a while. It does disappear after a while. Yeah. So because it's gone now, but wow.
I didn't notice.
See it before. Like I took screenshots of it and literally didn't notice. It was so faded. Like I'm not gonna notice that anyway.
It is very well hidden. It's not something that screams. They didn't make it super large. It's in the background.
Like
it's behind. There's so much going on, and you're really captivated by Eparch, and you're wondering how this is all going to end. That I'm not really like, what's that slight faint orange hue floating in the sky? Oh, there's like a pyramid around it. Oh, it's the Eye of Janthier. Like, you're gonna be caught into this, but
that would have been cool. I do wish I'd noticed that.
Damn.
This final part I actually thought was kind of cool, where they're all coming through the portal and also paying homage to the new leader as well. I actually really enjoyed that. There were some subtle nods at places. Now, when you first go into this instance, right, the one where you're going into the tower, Irina's there and a good old dad's there. We've talked about their relationship.
Good old
right?
dad.
Good old dad. And we talked about their relationship in the past and how it feels like they're kind of disconnected, right? But there was a part here, and I don't know if you noticed it. Like, he walks away, and I literally said on stream, I was like, this is his daughter. She's probably going to die. Like, he does not know what is going to happen. And then, just before he goes through the portal, no words, she turns, and it's very, very obvious. And they look at each other, and I think he nods. And he just gives her this, and I'm getting a little goosebump now, because it felt really nice. Like, to see them. Yeah, it was really cool. Like, it's coming very shortly. Because I was like, at the first I was like, dude, give a hug or something, man. Like, come on. She might die. But actually it was kind of sweet in a way. And it was just like, just giving that homage to their relationship. I don't want to see where it is. There you go. Dagda goes through. So that's when Dagda goes through, and he goes through. And then he stops.
Dagda leaves.
Yeah, he stops.
You're right.
Turns around.
She doesn't even.
And he gives the salute to Irina, and so does she.
Oh, that's a nice touch.
Isn't it nice? I'm getting goosebumps. Like, just re-looking at that.
That is a lovely touch.
Isn't it? Like, I thought that was actually one of the nicest things I saw in this last story section. Isn't it weird that that's the thing I noticed out of everything, and like people did?
You missed the giant spider crab.
I saw the emotional part. There you go. That makes sense. But it was really nice, and it was like, it's almost like I know you're gonna kind of be okay as well, so that was kind of nice, I think. Like, it wasn't. I'm glad they had a little thing.
A question that I had from this moment, and maybe I just super missed this, or because of the release cadence, it had just fallen from my mind in the time. Who is the Outrider? What is the Outrider?
The what?
Irina. Irina's the Outrider, isn't she?
Irina's the Outrider?
Is Irina the one?
There's a line here that says, like, it says, like, you're with the Wayfinder and the Outrider, you'll be fine. And I was like, I know we are the Wayfinder, but this was the first time that at least I consciously remembered the term Outrider being used. And I have no idea. I'm not sure who they were referencing, or if that's another position within the organization, or...
I would harbor to guess it's Irina, because when we first meet her, she is away from the tower. I think she's like the leader of the forces who go out into Tyria.
Yeah, which is probably, like Outrider, right?
Yeah, they go outside the vicinity to like lead defense forces, and I think that was like maybe her title in the wizard's court.
Maybe. I'm trying to see if it's on
That's
the
the only
wiki.
thing I could guess. Because the first time we see Irina is actually in...
she's called, it's on the wiki, Outrider Irina Copperwolf.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
I thought it was her. Yeah, it makes sense because she's the one, like Kroof said, who's out in this, like, kind of in this, on the edges of, like, they're known. Well, she was literally like out of out of reach completely as well, literally. So that makes sense.
But Keswick's Hills? I mean, the first thing we see here is right outside of Lion's Arch. So, but the wizards are very secretive, so they probably have like a specialized task force, who they're like, we'll trust you to go out and deal with the threats. So I think she was the commander of that, and that's where we first meet her.
I would have liked maybe
a little bit more on that.
Maybe they talk about it at some point. I feel like that could have been an interesting story moment as well, like to just get a little bit more understanding of the different factions, like what it means to be Wayfinder, what Outrider is as a position, what those positions are, or how characters relate to them. I think could have been interesting. And I think a big thing that we haven't talked about at all that I saw a lot of people commenting on, and it reminded me of you, Fornax, because I remember that when we went through the first portion, even though the initial release, I think was definitely one that we've all praised. We all really, really enjoyed a lot of that initial release. But I remember that one of the things that you'd brought up then when we were talking about it was the Heart of the Obscure, and something like a proper introduction for what it was and like why it was being given to you. And I think that's one thing that by the end of this, we still have not really had any true clarification on, other than it just being a game mechanic that we got, this expansion. And I saw a lot of, even commentary from the community about, like, I really thought there would be some explanation about what the Heart of the Obscure is or how we use it. And you do use it at certain points to kind of get through or, like, push your way forward. So I feel like maybe there was a hole there somewhere in the narrative to have the Heart of the Obscure itself, like the secret of the Obscure, to be kind of like revealed in what it might be. And maybe there still is. Maybe like, part of the stuff with the demons and other things is actually paving the way forward to a longer story that's going to build off of all this stuff here. I'm not sure, but I think our next expansion will be very telling in whether or not they're going to be trying to do some like larger scale thing, interweaving in these groups, these factions, these things on a bigger scale, or if it's just going to be more individual. But that was one aspect that I still felt like I was kind of confused about. Like, do all Wayfinders get one of these? No, this was a unique piece of technology, wasn't it? So, for us to be named Wayfinder, what does that specifically sort of mean? And for us to wield this thing in particular, like, was there a reason for that? Was there?
So, Peachy thought exactly that. She thought that everybody got one of these, that everybody had a heart, and that it was just part of the attire of the astral ward in order to help mitigate all these invasions. When it wasn't, it was a unique one-off piece of kit made by Waking Sorrow, and it's thrust into our hand for non-narrative reasons. It is solely a mechanic that they needed us to have, that they didn't. Maybe they hoped that we wouldn't think about it too much. Yeah.
Isn't it just one of those things, like another thing though in the story where we're talking about the Wayfinders, the titles, some of the characters, Payfer, like there is this theme going around again of disconnection. Like do you see what I mean? Like, what is this thing? Like, we don't fully know. But
it's fairly egregious though, isn't it? Sorry.
It could be. I'm not too saddened about the outcome of the Heart of the Obscure, because I feel like they could potentially use this as like setting stuff up for a Waiting Sorrow expansion to kind of retouch and re-explore that mystery of where is she? Where did she go? To really hone in. But then again, you would think that expansion would be called Secrets of the Obscure.
It's such a huge thing, Crew, in the game, right? Like you're literally using this thing to get legendary armor, essentially. Like it's like an essential tool, and there is no.
And I wonder what's going to happen to it. What happens to it now that we're done with the Wizard's Court? Do we return it? Do we just, in quotations,
there's no rifts
maybe if we go to Janthier next expansion, there's more tied to that with Waiting Sorrow and maybe the Eye of Janthier and the secrets in there. Maybe Waiting Sorrow is waiting there so that even we'd have a connection to this expansion to the next one. I'm not exactly
Maybe,
sure, but
Griff.
I like to stay a
Maybe.
little bit more optimistic that hopefully one day we'll have these questions answered. Because I think that's what they deserve. So
Yes,
True.
hopefully.
Maybe it's our portal to the mist. Maybe we have a handy portal maker that we can take to any mist realm that we like once we tune it properly, or, feed it the right thing or something like that.
That would be nice.
Because I was hoping that Pather would become a proper Madam Web, a kind of the portal mistress to take us around the multiverse, to show us all the different realms that they inhabit naturally because they invade the dreams of other beings, of other sentient and sapient beings. So I was hoping that would be the kind of her greater purpose as an interesting character that they've introduced, if they didn't turn her bad. And she doesn't appear to be, at least outwardly, trying to eat at our face at the moment. So, there's that. But yeah, I don't know. There's quite a few holes that I feel like they could have filled and made logical, reasonable narrative decisions for, that would have enriched the story and allowed them very quickly to do these things that they wanted to do, to hand it to us that only we could use. There's many reasons why we could be the only person who would be able to use it, but they just, I don't know. It just seems all very, I'm going to say, rushed.
Yeah.
And because
feeling.
this is their first 12-month expansion,
Yeah.
so shit had to get done.
I don't
okay,
think.
and that's fair.
I don't think. Yeah, this doesn't come from like a place of like they did a quote unquote bad job. I don't think that.
No.
I don't think any of us think that. I think that it is literally a learning experience. Like they piled in a ton of work, and sure, yeah, if you think about it, is it a living story over a year, episodes wise? I think it's more than that. But like also, like new tools. I don't even know. Maybe I haven't actually seen. I don't want to say something that just is bollocks, but like I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the amount of episodes and whatnot and chapters. But like,
I mean, it also doesn't help. Like living seasons are so variable, right? And the scope and scale
very
of them.
sparse sometimes.
I mean, I think as far as like the consistency or scale of kind of story throughput from beginning to end, Living Season 4 felt stronger to me in how it was executed. And is oftentimes like one of the things that's spoken of alongside expansions as like a period of episodic storytelling that was, very well received overall. With the way that they kind of broke that up and how they kept the momentum going and the cliffhangers and other aspects to the narrative, as well as how they tied that into the maps and the interactive story content. This one, I feel like, if we're kind of touching on the full story, again, like you said, it's not like anybody did a terrible job on this. And this was always going to be a learning year, right? Figuring out how they make this work, how they refine this, how they want to do it within Guild Wars 2, and what they, what the community response is, was always something that they were going to be adjusting after this. And we have that live stream coming up that's going to be talking about exactly that. So I encourage everybody to check that out and see, some of the major takeaways that the team had. Because while in parts, I think the second half of the year in particular, like the initial release, amazing. Like honestly,
expansion
was solid.
That launch portion, I loved it. Like if we had gotten that same scale for like a second major release, right, hello, welcome everybody. If we'd gotten that second, like that scale for the second major release, or like as the finale episode, I would have been like, I am pleased, even with the slightly sparser middle episodes, like amazing, can't wait for the next one, right? But I think as we saw, there was something about breaking up between the 3 releases in the second half of the year, how that affected the narrative pacing, how that one map perhaps didn't fully serve as much as it could have to really round out elements of the narrative. But all of this aside, the narrative was just one aspect of Secrets of the Obscure. And we got a lot of things like the Wizard's Vault, like the weapons that were added to the classes, like the legendary open world PvE armor set. Like, there are a ton of things that were added in that I think were like super worthwhile. We've had some great content. I even know from this patch, the CMs of the convergences have been really well received. So like there was some really good stuff and really valuable stuff that came from this expansion. I think the one area where, like, as we've discussed today, I'm like, this is something I would really need and want to see adjusted moving forward, is the narrative scale, scope, and robustness of what they release. And maybe figuring out how they can even adjust, or if it's possible for the second half of the year, because I do feel like that's where things really just didn't quite support what the rest of the expansion was trying to achieve.
Yeah, and ArenaNet as a studio, the types of expansions that they do are continuous. They are sagas of the Dragon storyline that they were able to tell over the course of 10 years.
Yeah.
And so when we now are in this new era where it's the responsibility to kind of wrap up a story in about a year's time, it is a very different mindset to put yourself in, probably as a writer, as a developer, as someone who programs, and to kind of at least structure how you're actually going to tell that story. So I that's why I have a lot of grace with these 3 intermittent patches, because I'm like, this is extremely new territory, and I think for what we did receive, it was good. It was playable. It was entertaining at points. The metas, I think, were some of the best out of, the story content that we received for like the Golden Path. And I think there were plenty of systems that arrived with the base expansion that have continued to help carry Guild Wars 2, especially like the Wizard's Vault, relics, legendary armor, all that stuff.
I mean, next time we'll definitely get into all the bits, like everything in the expansion, right? So we can give like a general idea of like our thoughts and feelings. Like going back to the story, just the end bit, because we will need to wrap this up soon, because we've been going for a little bit. But just the ending here with the credits, and then also seeing everyone, and really good points as well. I'm not trying to just like completely validate. We all just both said.
Wow, I can't believe you just invalidated what I just said.
It's terrible. Right? We got here, and I was like, the last instance, I was like, I mean, I get it. Like, we're gonna have a little bit of a party at the end, but I was a little bit disappointed, and also
really,
I was too.
It was.
I liked it. I liked this last part.
It was really overwhelming, actually. I was like really.
So when they give you the story you're looking for, you feel overwhelmed.
No, but like,
okay, now hold on.
It's all in one map area. Like, it's just there, and I feel like it was just a lot of fun. And again, it could be my ADHD kicking in, and just like pressure, and like, oh, I should look at all these things. Oh, there's too much. It could be a little bit of that, but it was good that it was there, and the voice stuff was okay, and it was cool, but it was just like not very long, like until the credits came up, and it was like the final chapter, and it felt very short. Like I said, like my stream was 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I had to replay the last instance, and I'd played it for half an hour. So this is an hour and 56 minutes in. I started it, even later, so like 10 minutes. So it was an hour and 46. You take half an hour, that's an hour and 15 minutes. And you're done, really. I mean, I know there's the content, this is content in here, but it's not gameplay. It's not like hugely impactful for me. And so it was like, it didn't seem like it was very long for the finale, I guess. And it was nice to see the credits, and you got an achievement for it, and there was an achievement to go for all the things, talk to the people. And it was really good to see the Ramses got like the ambassador position. That was cool. I like that. That was like, I was like, yeah, Ramses was like one of my favorite characters in this, for sure, easily. Was like, really? I think out of all the Cryptists, I think he had probably the most depth, and I know that that's still not that much, but like he was still very reactive and the most kind of endearing to me, I suppose. because he just had his moments. Other than the little guy who died in the first part.
Oh, yeah.
Miss that guy.
Jesus.
I liked that little guy.
Oh, sadness.
He felt the most
Jesus.
distinctively characterized of all the cryptids to me.
He was very.
Honestly,
he
yeah.
was. Like, that's why I'm saying it. Like him and Ramses for me were like, the pinnacle.
But I loved that
yeah.
this treaty scene, Paitha is still very mysterious. She does remark that if the astral ward become a burden, she'll just feast on them. And I like that
that's
she
good.
still maintains her cryptist roots in a way where she's not like completely attributed and like normalized to human society and like how Tyrians kind of function. She's like, no, don't forget, I'm still a cryptist, but I thank you for your help in this war. But I liked it. I think it was a great opportunity to touch base with all of the existing characters, to Zoja, to Lear. You can go around and see some notes as well, which might also possibly hint at where we might be going next, because there was a note about Anise calling Livia back to the Shining Blade. And we are also honorary Shining Blade members. We took the ritual.
Of course we are. We're members of everything.
The Eye of Janthier. So there's a lot of speculation around.
We've got a lot of memberships
that.
to keep up. Hopefully there isn't a fee, because we'll be absolutely skinned.
Yeah.
But like, we have no money.
I do have one major complaint from Paitha's dialogue in the last two instances. She very definitively friend zones you, and I don't care for that because she's my wife. She is my wife, ArenaNet. So if you could make it so my wife doesn't have to call me friend publicly, I would. No, no, I'm mostly teasing, but also I'm not, just a little bit.
How many wives do you have now, darling? I'm just like,
say,
how
man,
do you sleep?
like-
Is it just a little angry red nub at this point? Are you just Savlon? I don't know. What are you doing with your time?
I have a wealth of love to give. I have cards.
Wow.
That's not the part of Savlon. That's not, yeah.
No, I'll say this. I have both opinions, just like I have all the wives. I both simultaneously, which is that I like this instance for what it is. One of my favorite parts of the expansion was even the previous Wizard's Tower, where you could go around and get all of those additional lore books. You could do all the little interactive stuff in that one instance. I think when you first clear it out and get access to it, there's like that story instance and there's like achievements and stuff in there. So I love how robust that is, where if you want to, you can talk to everybody, you can read all the things, you can get these like private little looks at the different characters. I think that went a long way for me with this big cast in like giving them more life and depth, without having to, do like a bunch of other additional cutscenes and things that might not have been in the scope of what they could manage, right? So I really liked that. And I liked that we got to actually touch base with everybody. I liked that we, for the first time in the whole thing, actually got to see these two factions interacting. I think that some of it was a little bit cutesy. I love how cutesy it was. I love the little cryptists playing hide and seek.
Did you see the art ones? The ones
love
doing
the
the
one
art. That was very
yeah.
cool. That was very cool.
I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
I love it.
And on the diving board?
Oh, the diving board. You couldn't actually get him to
I wanted to push him off.
Okay,
I
I'm
was
changing
like,
my mind about the
wish-
final instance now because of these things. I forgot. I forgot about that.
I will say that I think those moments could have been more earned if we had had more of an actual journey in learning about the Cryptists, understanding the Cryptists, seeing the Astral Ward and their motivations for even finally begrudgingly, for those who did help the Cryptists. Like, I think they could have been a little more earned with the narrative to support it, but I still think it was cute and I liked it.
That's
One thing I will say though,
like on that point, like that's actually kind of cool if you think about it, because they've not really witnessed much of Tyria or life outside of that place. So maybe with where they were so like one-dimensional, and then with all this other stuff, like suddenly there's art and there's music and there's games and there's play, and they don't have that, and then suddenly there's more character to them. I think that could have been some focus, but it's kind of cool actually thinking about it. So that's a good point. But like how this world just like makes them feel more
Well, if we had gotten a bit more in the Cryptus portion of the expansion, right?
Yeah.
About how emotions affect them. That's like the really big thing.
Yes.
Because
okay.
I love the idea of the Cryptus. I think they're so unique and so interesting. All of the material of this expansion, honestly, is like my dream of what I would love to see in an expansion. These kinds of concepts, this kind of fantasy, these strange entities, these dreamscapes, these other worlds. Like, I really love the potential of it. But I think there's so much more, because if we had known more about how Cryptus are, they've been cut off for dreams, from dreams for ages. We don't know what their original states were like. With the range of emotions that they feed on, are they all only negative, or was that Eparch's doing, right? Like, there's so much that, like, again, if we'd had a little more foundational work in the second half, the payoff of actually seeing Cryptus not have to, like, destructively feed off of, but to, like, empathetically be nourished by joy, victory, happiness, creativity, love, like, that would have been so interesting. Like, and I think it's there. I think it's there, but, like, again, could the story have supported it more? For sure, to get us there. So all of this to say, this final instance, I actually really like it as a little, like, epilogue. The one thing that hit me really weird were the credits. I had a very different feeling with the credits that rolled at the end of SoTO than I did the ones that rolled at the end of Dragons. And I really I thought it was so sweet too that they put a little nod into the ArenaNet partners and things.
Yeah,
like, it was really sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so exciting to see, like, Roy and Bog Otter, who were creators, like, get their first credits. But it did not feel like the right place for the credits for me. And I would have almost rather have had something like a cinematic post scene that either gave us a teaser of what the next expansion would be, or that just cinematically and thematically gave us some beautiful shots of things from the expansion and
It was over the top of all the text that we were going to go and read.
That's what was the weird thing to me.
Like,
I couldn't even read anything.
Some kind of moment where, like, at least with End of Dragons, we had glorious Aurene framed in the background. We had this bastion of peace, this beautiful, like, it just, it felt like the finale episode was incredibly short. For what I was kind of expecting. It was very short. If you missed things like the meta, like we discussed today, even more so, there were a lot of things that were kind of left that just really weren't supported to their full measure. And then we get this moment that has some great little wrap up and some character moments, and then suddenly it's just like, and slap, there's the end credits. And so I think that there could have been some better pacing, and again, more of a cinematic framework for giving you as a player a real sense of closure, a bit of a revisiting of what you had done, some cinematic shots of the characters, a cutscene or something, right? And then roll the credits, have some, of the concept art, have some, because it just, it felt very odd. And in the way that it was framed, I think only underscored the strange pacing and brevity of the finale in such a way that it didn't leave a great impression on me, if that makes sense. And I say that with, like, a lot of things that I really appreciated about Secrets of the Obscure, but it felt weirdly foisted in or something.
Flat. It felt flat. Like, it was,
if I'm gonna be honest with my overall impression of, like, the first half of SoTO, I loved that expansion. But when it comes to Nyos, in my opinion, I really wish they didn't choose Nyos as the storyline to go down for these 3 updates. I felt like Nyos and the world and the realm of demons deserved its own expansion, to the point where I would not have minded if they had the first expansion be entirely about the wizards and Paitha, and the next expansion 5, where we actually have 3 maps dedicated to building out what Nyos is as, like, a world or a realm. I'm even confused about, like, is that literally all of Nyos? Is there more to it? Is it a planet? There's so many questions, and there's so much that I kind of wish that this was a 2 expansion storyline, rather than, like, 75% of it being about a completely separate thing, and the last 25% being like, and here's demons. And I still hope that maybe in the future they'll give this some more time to actually flesh out a different realm to where we have like 2 other maps to explore. But I think this is like the pitfall of when they are learning to develop a 1-year storyline. I think even then they kind of overreached a little bit to be like but I love that they have the dedication, or like they really commit to it, but it's just like, you needed another expansion to really solidify this.
Yeah.
I mean, the silly little things that I wish they'd done, like when Paitha took the throne, I wanted her to go up and sit on it, and then like a rippling change happen. So the gore falls away, and like 2 of those beautiful trees just like immediately bloom and like crowd, so that she is a different leader. It just like a visual representation that this place, everything is different now. We have changed the world, and we have helped her change the world, and we have not been just supporting a different type of monster, you know? And
I feel like we just did, didn't we? Like maybe that's why they just didn't do that.
Yeah,
we probably just did.
I'm sorry, that's my wife. Please don't criticize her.
Well,
she's basic. Let's be honest.
As long as she doesn't eat you, we'll be fine. Well,
no, I
in
agree.
certain ways.
I think that she might be banking on that, actually.
Yeah,
but
she's like, please draw me closer into your web.
Yeah, it felt
Step
like...
on me, mama.
Yes, thank you, please. Thank you.
She's basic, everyone. It's okay.
I agree with you, because it felt like 100% for Fornax. It felt like a realm of dreams, just in its name even, has the potential again to reflect emotion or manifest subconscious in a way that a real world wouldn't. So I had the exact same thought, where I was like, perhaps part of what's so huge about Zakiros and this throne and, Eparch's rule is the fact that the throne itself somehow is like a focal point or channel point for the one who holds the power of king that affects the dreamscape of the realm. So I was right there with you.
Oh, that would have been good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
And then they could have had
a
cutscenes. If nothing else going... Shit, I've just smacked my mic. Sorry. If nothing else going forward, smack. Get out of the way, bitch.
You're
if nothing else going
just
forward...
angry. Throw it. Throw it across the room. Bring it back.
Don't
do that.
They need a dedicated machinima team. They need a dedicated cutscene team. I know that you have a small budget, but you have to give us something. And cutscenes and good narrative development in that kind of thing, that can go a long way, especially when you have a shortfall. How many cutscenes, how many like scripted, interesting cutscenes did we get in Naos?
None.
Correct.
Were there
don't
cutscenes in the first release?
Yeah, there was like 2.
Yeah.
Okay,
2 or
that's
3.
Still not enough, I don't think.
I mean, you need.
2 or 3.
I think you need at least one. You need at least one
the
cinematic in your finale.
Yeah.
At least one. At least one. And if you're only going to do one, I feel like personally it should be a decently robust cutscene. If you have a couple smaller ones, fine. But you need at least a cutscene for the finale.
Even during Living World, we would get 1 cutscene per episode, which I believe people have talked about it back then, and that also was a really big ask, and it was quite taxing. But I agree, something like a finale, I think it deserves that attention to really create that cinematic endpoint. But I'd say overall, I was entertained, which at the end of the day, all I can ask for from a video game is to be entertained. As long as I'm not ripping my hair out and screaming at the computer, I think that was a success.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean,
there's so much story, like Mordremoth's influence.
No,
I mean, I've
replayed
replayed the meta event a few times, and I'm glad I did.
I don't replay Master's story, to be fair.
But the story, I don't think I'll replay the story. No, I am just purely for stream content. I'm actually going to be starting up a replay.
Just if I need to do achievements, maybe. I never replay. But the thing about the Ender Dragons bit compared to this, because I mean, you were talking about that, like there was so much like drama and there's so much like the real struggle that everyone's kind of effed. Like, we are kind of effed, and this is going down. And I know it's the end of like 10 years, and it's very different. There's a lot more kind of emphasis and stuff, but like, this was always going to be, I think someone said it earlier, I think it was you, Kroof, like, you know, this is always going to be really challenging to go from 10 years to 1. And it's not an excuse. I think this was a very ambitious project to be their first expansion. I think that was this was a very, they should have maybe looked more to like a core Tyria experience and started in a world which is established and has some guts to it, so that they can build off of that. I think this was over ambitious. Not to say that wasn't a good thing, but we know what ArenaNet are like. They just go the whole hog sometimes, which is why we love what they do. So it's like, you know, what do you do? And it would have been this way, I think, in either way. And it's, like we said, it's not been bad. Like, we'll talk about the general expansion next time, so I don't waffle. But this was a really cool bit in the last instance. Is the Cryptus with the Christmas tree. Did you see that one? It was really cool. Yeah. It was just all these like really human kind of like these moments of like, what is that?
Merry Christmas.
One of the ones that I loved in that area was the Quaggin meatball Cryptus looking at a stuffed Quaggin in the snow, like having an existential crisis.
It's like, are you me or am I you?
It's really good. I mean, okay, one thing I wanted to contextualize and add though is that okay, so just recently, not to like advertise or promote somebody else's content here, but sure. I oftentimes watch Jenny Nicholson's videos on YouTube because I find her highly entertaining.
Y'all watching the Star Wars documentary?
Watching the Star Wars documentary. So she just did one about the Star Wars experience, which was this like lavish paid like $7,000 or more experience. So it was like a 2-day experience that was supposed to be like,
yes, wow.
It was supposed to be an immersive LARP hotel that Disney did. It's fun. Go watch it. It's out of business now, but she does an incredible breakdown of a lot of different things. And I think that a lot of what she pulls out of it, because she went and she talks about like what the experience was like. And one of the things that you can kind of take out of it as a greater theme is particularly in this kind of consumerism and corporate greed and everything else that we're seeing, that a huge question we have to ask ourselves about everything is about what you are paying and what you are getting, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing that Fornex, you have brought up time and time again on the podcast, and that I also think that all of our discussions about Secrets of the Obscure have to take into account is the fact that this expansion was $25. Yeah. And do I have to say, do I think we got $25 worth? Yes. I straight up think that no matter what you think about the balance or the story or the things that came out, do I think that we at least got $25 worth of value out of this expansion? Yes.
Damn right.
100% I do. You've said it before, Fornex. The first installment alone, with the features and things that came with it, I think was $25 easily for me, especially since we don't pay subscriptions, we don't pay anything else, you know. But I'll also counterbalance this with, I do think that for the longevity and the excitement of the community and the support of the game, as well as the realization of these wonderful, incredible concepts, ideas, and storytelling methods that ArenaNet has, because they really do. And time again, like we've talked about, what I played in the first half of Secrets of the Obscure is what I wanted to be obsessed with for the whole year. Like, I wanted to have another huge section like that. I wanted to be right in the experience that I had from that initial release this whole year, and I would have been over the moon. Were there some issues with the story scope? Were there some loss of momentum and other things in the particularly 3 last releases that we had? Yes. And I think they need to relook at that. They need to figure out if there's any way that they can even consolidate some of that into a single larger release, tell a more coherent story, and then look at what they might consider to be otherwise supplemental stuff that gets added. Be that just a fractal on its own and some adventures to the map or whatever else, right? I would almost be happier to just have 2 big chunks with coherent story and robust storytelling arcs, and a few little things in between. But there is still something to be said about the fact that this expansion was only $25. Now, moving forward, if they were able to scale more, charge us more, and literally scale to more of what you get from something like an ESO year-long cycle, which, by the way, is like $60 bare minimum if you don't do the collector's editions. So again, we're contextualizing the cost and what was received. But ESO also makes you pay, if you don't have a subscription, makes you pay for any of the additional dungeons or other content that's released during that year-long cycle, even if you've purchased the expansion. So $25, yes, we got that value. Would I be okay with a little bit more and getting more? Yes, 100%, absolutely. I honestly think it would be better for the game overall. But now, of course, what the team can actually realize is another aspect that we don't fully have information on. Sorry. But really, truly, I do think that particularly the last 3 releases of Secrets of the Obscure really did not do a full service to the rest of the expansion. And I think, unfortunately, it is what many people are going to take away from the experience. And I think we needed to end on a stronger note to really carry momentum and excitement into this next year-long cycle. So I'm hoping that, what they talk about, I'm sure they're going to acknowledge a lot of this themselves as they do this retrospective. I have no doubt that they are aware of many of these things, that there's a ton of stuff they wish they could have done X, Y, or Z way, or realized more fully, or so I'm hoping that with some of the troubleshooting of this year, they're able to do that. But when it comes down to it, $25 for what we got, no subscription in the game. I do think we got that, and I think they did deliver, even going through the blog posts, all the things that they had outlined, but kind of how they package and parcel that and how they make sure that we still feel the full support of an expansion across the whole breadth of a year is something that I think they need to keep looking at for future X-Packs.
So true. I totally agree. I think it's such a damn shame that Naos has fallen flat, because people are quite fickle, and the last thing that they played will be the first thing that they remember, and they forget how awesome the salvo of the expansion was, and how and the gameplay was, and the character development was, and the exploration, and they'll just remember that Naos was a bit crap, and that's what they're going to take away. And it's so sad, because it had all that potential. I've said this so many times, and I even got a nice note from one of the writers talking about my critique. He was so sweet about it. But
that's cool.
It's the concept. I keep saying this is a mile wide and an inch deep. They just didn't have the time to be able to go into it and give it, like Crew said, that it deserves an expansion of its own. And I hope that they'll take away from this that one story at a time per year. Just the one will do. Just one. Just one. Please. Thank you very much.
Okay. I think we're gonna start to wind it down now. I think I gave my general thoughts. Yeah, like there is so much. Like, even this episode has been difficult to get concisely into a 2-hour spot. We've gone a bit over today, so we appreciate you all.
I must say,
time.
I think that does at least expose that there is so much to talk about, and there is quite a bit of content.
Absolutely.
But just like the way it's delivered matters so much.
Yeah.
So it's not like we were like, there was one instance, we're done with this podcast in 30 minutes.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I did joke about that in our Discord as well. I was like, it might be a short episode. I was like, it's never a short episode, but also, wow. Yeah, there is a lot. General thoughts from me. $25, it was worth it, and it wasn't just story we got a whole bunch of other stuff, and we'll talk about that on the next podcast, which it might be next week, or it might be the week after. We'll see how we're feeling. But because it's just come out, maybe we'll do it sooner than later. Otherwise, I think we're going to call it, knock it on the head there, unless anyone has any final thoughts that they want to urgently deliver to our community of awesome peoples. No.
I just need a list of all your waifus. That's what I want. That's what I need to know. Inquiring minds must know how many waifus there are. Yes.
There's so many. Yeah, I'll start compiling.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm going to live vicariously through you. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Rook has a tier list.
I can share. I can share if they're fine with it. You know what I mean? You can.
I was there for the tier list, actually. That tier list podcast was hilarious.
Yes. It's already a thing that's happened, I believe. Yeah. There's no shame there. They are full on sharing their information. Okay. Everyone, we're gonna leave. Kroof, tell us what you do, where you do it. And also Schmiegel as well, apparently.
Hi, I'm Kroof.
Oh,
Just a little girl with your content creator. Hi. Do you want to go outside on the swing set and play swings?
You have to stop.
Anyway, thanks for having me.
happening?
Sometimes I press buttons on a keyboard and I record it. Other times I don't. Come over my Twitch and find out if I am. Bye.
Oh, I'm delirious. Thank you for having me.
God.
Yeah, I do YouTube and I do Twitch.
was-
Thanks.
That was so amazing. That was creepy and sexual. That was so weird. Thank you,
That's
Dan.
Kroof for the
Wow,
biscuits in right there, to be fair.
in a
That is
nutshell.
Kroof, yeah.
Sexual.
Pretty much
Damn.
Oh my god.
in an Oh dear. Rook, tell us what you do and where you do it.
I can't even follow that.
I
Hey,
don't
I'm
know.
Rook. You can. I don't I
You
don't
can.
have the same creep sexual vibe. I just don't. And I wish sometimes that I did, but I just have not been able to tap into
You
that
wish
as
you
well
did.
as Kroof has.
You
I'll dream
sure?
about it. I hope. I'll keep manifesting. You can find me just being me, just having a lot of feelings about games and playing games and enjoying MMORPGs on my channel. That's on Twitch. That's Rookery, ROOKURI. You can also find me on YouTube at the same, and you can find me on Twitter at Rookery_. Like I said, tomorrow, depending on when you listen to this, tomorrow, May 25th, I will be hosting on the Mythic Plus Pro-Am over on Team Liquid's channel. This is in World of Warcraft, but it's an amazing event for charity. I had the pleasure of being a part of it last year. I'll be on desk with some lovely folks, including Lithy, who some of you may or may not know I've done a lot of co-casting with. So come say hey, come watch, see as everybody races for a good cause as they all try to champion their charities. And there'll be a lot of other events and things coming up for me as well, so I'll do my best to keep you all in the loop.
Yeah. I'm gonna go and watch. Say hello. Excellent. Legend. Fornax. Kroof, you can yawn. You don't have to cover it and hide
Sorry.
it. Just yawn. It's fine.
I
Don't say
haven't
what
eaten
I
much
say that to
food
my
today.
clients. I'm like, you do not need to hide your yawn from me. Your body is doing a thing it needs to do. Fornax. Tell us what you do, where you do it.
Hey, I'm Fornax, the Crichton Herald. Anywhere that the Crichton Herald is, that's me. Apart from OnlyFans, that's somebody else. I don't do that. And yeah, that's it. I make content occasionally. I'm going to try and make some more now that my life is not a steaming fire of shit. So yes, that's what I'm
I
going to
like
be
how
doing.
you tried to stop
Quite
swearing
recently.
and then swore anyway. Very good.
I was thinking about it, and then I thought, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you tried.
Okay, yeah.
You tried.
Yeah, I did.
It's okay.
I
You
am
might
very
need to go
tired.
fix your mic.
But I have missed you guys.
broken.
Thank you for having me again. It's lovely to chat with you all.
We
You're
have
so
missed you.
awesome.
Yeah, it's good to see your not face. I'm not sure what's going on with your
Digital face
microphone.
always.
Something is going down with your microphone. It's making a lot of noise. So we're going to say goodbye to you. It's okay. I've been Jebro. I hope everyone has enjoyed this episode. It's been a wonderful time. It's good to see our friends again. We'll be back maybe next week or the week after. We'll talk about the expansion as a general whole. Might be difficult to do. But, you know, we've shared a lot about what we feel already, but it will be, yeah. How was Secrets of the Obscura as an expansion? And thinking about the future and where we're going with that. There's a lot to think about and there's a lot to play. And I will be doing a lot of that tomorrow on our Twitch Subathon during drops, which will be lovely and fun. So come by if you want to hang out. If you're listening live, if you're not listening live and you've gone past the moment, well, you missed it. What were you doing? Should have come and hung out, shouldn't you? Ugh, you missed it. All the giveaways, all the stuff. But anyway, Lightbringers podcast, GW2, Google it, Bing it, Yahoo it, other crappy web browsers if you want. Just be careful about Microsoft AI. Anyway, sorry, it's a weird conspiracy very randomly in the outro. YouTube.com/JebroUni if you want to watch the episodes or listen to them on there. You can also go to Spotify, iTunes, all your favorite things, review it, 5-star it, or 1-star it if you don't like it. But like, comment, subscribe on this video, massively appreciate it. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on Lightbringers podcast. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye. Okay.